After an encounter with a supernatural force beyond human comprehension, Jack Connors is Isekaid into a new world. Reborn into the body of a 4-year-old Megumi Fushiguro, Jujutsu Kaisen's greatest potential man, he works to surpass his humanity to evolve into something more. And maybe give some much-needed happy endings to those that deserve it along the way. Hello, everyone. Omni-sensei here with What If I Was Reborn in JJK as Megumi? The Potential Man Part 1. If you enjoy this content, please smash the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the original story linked in the description. I hope you enjoy listening to it. A rather tall man with nondescript medium-length dark brown hair walked down the street with a very tired expression on his face. You could see the man run his hand through his hair and then sigh in frustration before exclaiming in a tired tone. "Man, John was such an asshole today. I swear if I wasn't saving up to buy that last volume of Jujutsu Kaisen I wouldn't have even bothered to go to work." The man was a 19-year-old named Jack Connors. He was a college dropout living in his parents' house who decided that further education just wasn't for him and dropped out, preferring to live with his parents and help around the house. He wasn't a complete shut-in failure as some may consider him, as he does help pay the bills around the house by working as an assistant manager at the local supermarket. He made good money, and while it wasn't the most interesting or ambitious job, he could say that he was relatively happy with his lot in life. He had recently gotten into a manga called Jujutsu Kaisen, preferring it to the average shonen manga for its more realistic take on a superpowered world. He took out his phone and started reading the latest chapter of the manga. You could see a gigantic smile on his face as he stopped walking and let out a big laugh. After all that hype, Yuta gets his shit rocked by Sukuna even after taking Gojo's body, huh? Well, it's only the first 7 pages, so I'll let him cook for now. He started walking again. As he turned around a corner, he saw that a nearby truck's headlights had turned red, and the truck seemed to be covered in a dark aura. He could almost swear purple Japanese kanji were floating around the truck. The truck swerved off the road at hypersonic speeds and shot towards him with no signs of stopping, and in the face of what had to be death incarnate, Jack Connors froze in fear. Beep beep bitch. All Jack could think of before his impending demise was not thoughts of his family or his friends. It was a simple thought: ah, damn it, I didn't get to see that bum fraud Sukuna get his deserved humiliation for what he did to my goat Itadori Yuji. At first, it was white-hot pain, and then it was a pure nothingness, and then all feeling came back to him all at once. He stumbled while walking. What happened? Did I not die? He looked around himself and saw that all of his surroundings had changed. What? Wait, my voice, it's different. He looked down at himself and saw his hands, which were much smaller than he remembered. It also looked like his clothes had changed, as he wasn't wearing a blue t-shirt and black shorts. He touched his face and noted that it was also different. Looking around, he saw a puddle on the floor that had enough water in it that reflected his reflection, and he saw a person that he definitely recognized, yet was not his original body. Deep black onyx-colored hair, chubby youthful cheeks, fluffy medium-length hair that seemed to have a mind of its own, and vibrant forest green eyes that shined with a glow that seemed abnormal. Then memories that weren't entirely his own came flooding into him, about a life of hardship, trying to live a normal life with his stepsister with no parents to help them, as his sister named Tsumiki had a mother that left them to fend for their own with nothing more than a monthly amount of money left in front of the door of the apartment for them to live on. And then it came to him, his new name in what used to be an impossible world. Yet before he could even acknowledge it by saying it or even think of it clearly in his mind, another voice not of his own beat him to it. "You're Fushiguro Megumi-kun, right?" "Who?" "That voice sounds awfully familiar. If I really became Fushiguro Megumi after Truck-kun killed me, then that must be Gojo. Should I have to go according to what I can remember with canon, or it might sound off or make Gojo or Tsumiki suspicious? Thank God I reread the manga so many times." I think it was Jack. Now Megumi turned around and spoke back to the voice he heard behind him. Who are you? And what's with that weird face? The little boy remarked. The man behind him was exactly who he thought he would be. He was quite tall, had pure white hair, wearing what seemed to be a black school uniform with dark blue round sunglasses that didn't quite hide the ethereal glow of the sapphire blue eyes behind them. He was Gojo Satoru, the future strongest sorcerer of the modern age and the man who would fight Ryaman Sukuna and would unfortunately lose to what many in the Jujutsu Kaisen community would consider bad writing. Just thinking you look similar, that's all. The young man then raised his hand and went on to explain. So your dad is actually from the reputable Zenin sorcerer family. Even if I think he's just a big loser, he left the family and had you. You have powers, and you can see them, right? I bet you've already manifested your cursed technique too. The Zenin family loves sorcerers blessed with quality cursed power. A cursed technique typically manifests between the ages of 4 and 6. A ripe time to sell. You're something your dad kept from the Zenin family, his trump card. He concluded as he rubbed his middle and thumb fingers together. The white-haired man crouched down to the young raven-haired boy's eye level and said, "Sucks, doesn't it? Your dad. So what? I don't care where he is or what he is doing. I haven't seen him in years. I don't even remember what he looks like, but I got the gist from what you're saying. Tsumiki's mom hasn't returned in a while either, so that means they're done with us and are living happily together." Megumi cut him off and said dismissively, as in the background you could hear Tsumiki open the balcony sliding door and exclaim, "Hey Megumi, you're back." Gojo leaned his head against his arm, still crouched down, and exclaimed in amusement, "Are you really a first grader? Well, if you ever get curious about your dad, just ask." The young man said as he stood up straight, his voice slightly straining as he did so. He then continued, saying, "I think you might find it interesting. Now then, let's get down to business. What do you want to do? Do you want to go to the Zenin clan?" Nice, it looks like he doesn't find anything out of the ordinary. Now I just have to keep myself in character until eventually it becomes second nature. He looked like he considered it for a second before asking, "What'll happen to Tsumiki? If we go there, will Tsumiki be happy?" My answer depends on that. The white-haired man did not need even a second to consider it, as he flat out denied the notion without a second thought. "No. There is absolutely no way. I can guarantee that." The younger boy seemed to grimace tellingly at that, telling the older man all that he needed to know. Heh. Gotcha. I'll take care of things," he said as he put his hand upon the boy and ruffled his hair good-naturedly. Then, he turned away, waving his back at the boy, and stated, "But you're gonna have to work extra hard. I'm counting on YA." His hand fell back down to his waist as he then said with a tone of finality, "You better get strong. Strong enough to keep up with me." 1 year later. February 2010. It's been a year since I came to this world. I've acclimated as best as you can think one can after what I've been through. My new life has been kinda nice, all things considered, while it does get kind of frustrating being younger for more menial things like reaching high shells and being able to do basically what I want, whenever I want. It has been a rather relaxing life, speaking of which. Megumi walked to the door of a small house that was in a rather well-off area of the Tokyo suburbs. The white marble of the foyer leading into the house seemed to signify the wealth that was required to live in such a refined and expensive home. The lock of the front door gave a soft clink as the young boy opened the door and went inside the house. "I'm home," he informed me as he took off his shoes and went inside the house. It had white walls with tasteful decorations and some expensive furniture. "Ah, Megumi, you're back. How was school?" A young girl a few years older than himself asked. She had long brown hair styled in a ponytail and kept long bangs on both sides of her face, with soft brown eyes that seemed to radiate kindness. She was Fushiguro Tsumiki, his elder stepsister and the one who took care of him most of the time. "Yeah, I'm back, and school was boring but fine. The younger boy replied as he took off his shoes and fluffy coat that had the initials "A very dry." It looked like a quite expensive brand that, along with the house, gave a picture of wealth that no two children living alone should possess. "Did Satoru come by today?" "No, he sent me a message telling me that he would come in later in the evening. He said he had a mission to take care of a grade 1 cursed spirit on the way before he can get here." Cursed spirits they were, along with cursed energy, the thing that separated this world from his previous. Energy is created from the negative emotions of human beings all around the world. Every human has some cursed energy inside them. The thing that separates Jujutsu sorcerers from normal human beings around them is their ability to perceive cursed spirits and being able to manipulate cursed energy to their whims. Cursed techniques are abilities fueled by cursed energy. Different types include innate techniques, barrier techniques, shikigami, new shadow styles, and more. These abilities are what are used to kill cursed spirits or to protect yourself from others. Innate techniques are widely believed by many to be the strongest type of cursed techniques and are usually passed down through blood. This makes those who are blessed with an innate technique very desirable for many Jujutsu clans and Jujutsu tech higher-ups. Clans such as the Zenin clan are willing to pay exorbitant amounts of money for specific techniques such as projection sorcery and the fabled 10 shadows. Speaking of the 10 shadows, the raven-headed boy brought his hands up together to a shape that resembled the head of a wolf with its maw open. And then shadows erupted from his sides as two majestic beasts climbed from the abyssal voids on either side of him. One is a pure vibrant white wolf with a fluffy mane and 3 red dots on his head connected in a triangle. The other is also a wolf looking the same as his brother except a deep onyx black. Ruff! Woof! The twin wolves called out as they were summoned by their master, who called out divine dogs. The wolves excitedly ran around the boy as both their tails were wagging side to side. "Ah, you summoned Blizzard and NYX. Come here, boys." Tsumiki went over excitedly, and the dogs responded to her excitement with even more excitement, running over. Blizzard, being the more social and excitable of the two, jumped on Tsumiki, dropping her on the floor as he licked her face in greeting, his brother NYX not being all that far behind. He get off me, you little rascals." The young girl laughed out as she was being greeted by the two dogs. "Well, they seem very happy to see you." Megumi laughed as he went over to the kitchen to grab a drink. As the black-haired boy drank some water he got from the fridge, they all heard a knock on the front door of the house. Megumi went over to the door to investigate, but before he could get close the door flew open, revealing Gojo Satoru, heir of the Gojo clan and the man that took care of them as he promised when they first met. With him was a young woman whom they had gotten to know very closely over the year that it had been since they were in the care of Gojo. Shoko is a tall woman with short hair that only reached just past her chin with bangs swept to the left side. She has soft brown eyes with dark lines under them, making it appear as if she's underslept. She also has a mole underneath her right eye and thick brown eyebrows. And wore the typical jacket-type Jujutsu high uniform. "Yo, how's it going, you brats?" "Oh, come on, Satoru, no need to call them that. How are you two?" And then I looked at the cursed spirit, pointed my hand at it, and used blue on it. It got turned into a ball in 2 seconds flat. Gojo leaned back as he laughed out loud at the poor first-grade cursed spirit that had the misfortune of running into the honored one. Tsumiki clapped her hands as she listened to Gojo tell tales of his victory over the curse. "Wow, that's so cool, Gojo-san. You're as strong as ever, he?" The younger girl said as she took a bite of the white rice that she made for lunch. Along with perfectly made Japanese fluffy white rice, there was a side of hearty miso soup, some grilled salmon fillets, tamagoyaki, rolled omelette, pickled vegetables such as pickled radishes and ginger, nori, and more curiously some natto. He forgot to mention how even with his fabled 6 eyes, he managed to not notice a grade 2 hair curse sneak up on him and attack the civilian we were sent there to save. Shoko called out to Gojo mockingly before eating a piece of perfectly grilled salmon and pausing for a moment before sighing in satisfaction. "My god, Tsumiki, you really know how to cook, huh? This salmon is fantastic. I'm so glad we came here to eat instead of just getting a sandwich from the konbini." Tsumiki blushed a little before hastily thanking the older woman for the compliment. "Oh, it's nothing, really, Shoko-san. If it wasn't for Gojo-san taking care of our money problems and keeping our fridge and cabinet fully stocked with the highest quality ingredients, this food wouldn't be as good as it is." The white-haired man, who was just grimacing remembering his mistake that almost cost them the mission and lost an innocent civilian life, seemed to brighten up a little at that. "I always told her she could be a great chef in the future, but she always denied it, no idea why. She's the best cook I've ever eaten from, and that's counting all the expensive restaurants Satoru-san takes us to." Megumi finally spoke up and said after finishing his miso soup. Tsumiki blushed and stammered even more from that statement. Gojo gained a grin before changing the subject and asking the raven-haired boy, "So Megumi-kun, have you done what I asked you to?" Megumi looked up from his food and nodded while looking the honored one in the eye. "Heh, good then. Show me." "All right." Gamma Toad. The young boy brought his hands together in the shape of a shadow puppet of a frog. His thumbs were touching, and above them were his index and middle fingers together, making a mouth-shaped hole in the middle with his pinky fingers bent in the shape of eyes. The two divine dogs who were still summoned perked up from where they were sleeping together, cuddled up on a dog bed that Tsumiki bought specifically for them. Just as before, a void-like abyss opened up beside Megumi, from which a rather large at 6-foot-tall green frog hopped out. He had a white underbelly and identical marks on its front and back with red markings around the eyes. Ribbit. The frog seemed rather content as it was summoned into the kitchen. "EW Megumi, please put that thing away. It's so gross, it's gonna dirty the kitchen." Tsumiki freaked out at the sudden unexpected arrival of the Shikigami, jumping out of her place and hiding behind Gojo. "Ha ha ha. No need to worry, Tsumiki-chan, the scary frog won't touch you while I am here." Gojo expectedly laughed out at the young girl's unexpected fear. Shoko giggled at their antics as she took a sip of her miso soup before saying, "That's a pretty big frog you got there, Megumi-kun. A bit bigger than I remembered it being," explained before. The brown-haired woman brought a finger up to her lip as she hummed in thought before saying, "Didn't the record say that the average size of the frog Shikigami was only like 4 feet tall or something? That thing is as tall as Satoru." The titular man laughed a little before considering it for a moment and agreeing, calling out, "Yeah, I remember that. The records did say that the height was 4 feet in the last user of the 10 shadows. Although..." "Just a sec." The white-haired man suddenly stood up before a blue glow surrounded him for a moment and he suddenly and inexplicably disappeared. Tsumiki's eyes widened for a moment in amazement at the casual feat of power, while Shoko just shook her head while looking at where the disappeared man used to be before looking back down at her food and taking a bite out of a pickled radish. "I think I know why mine is bigger than the average. I remember back when Sukuna first took over Megumi's body and summoned New. It was almost 100 times bigger than the new Megumi was able to summon. Maybe this is because he supplied New with much greater cursed energy than Megumi could ever hope to, making it that big. It could also be because he used totality with the serpent." Looking over at the twin divine dogs cuddling together in the living room and noting that they were rather big, almost 3.5 feet tall. "Maybe this applies to me too? I did notice that I never really ran out of energy while summoning these two. I guess the same thing that made Sukuna's New so much bigger is making my shadows also bigger than normal even at base without me purposely funneling cursed energy into them to make them bigger." The raven-haired boy paused for a moment to eat some rice followed by a piece of grilled fish. "I haven't really thought of it or really considered it much, but I think me taking over the original Megumi's body in the way that I did bless me with abnormally huge cursed energy reserves." In the background you could see Tsumiki slowly getting back into her seat and continuing eating while keeping an eye on the frog, which was simply sitting there croaking away contently after it caught a housefly that was flying around. Shoko was still enjoying her meal and stole Gojo's salmon fillet while he was away. Not sure what happened to the OG Megumi's soul, but if I had to say, maybe his soul and mine fused together when my soul entered his body. Our collective cursed energy, which was supposed to stay somewhat static since birth, had collided and caused a sort of fusion reaction that multiplied my cursed energy reserves manifold. 8n, Megumi's current CE reserves equals U2 reserves. Before Megumi could continue on his line of thought, a blue flash of cursed energy flooded the room, originating from where Gojo sat prior to teleporting away. The man appeared once again with a well-worn book on hand that had the words 10 Shadows Encyclopedia on it. "I got it!" the man exclaimed before sitting down where he sat before, in his excited haze of finding the book, not even noticing his missing salmon, to which Shoko slyly smirked in the background. Opening the book and letting it unfurl, the pages flying by before he stops it with a theatrical flair. Tsumiki had stars in her eyes as she watched her idol and only father figure. Only for him to stare at the book for a few seconds before shouting out comically, "Ah shit, it's the wrong page." Tsumiki's awe turned into confusement and dumbfoundedness as she had a comically large sweat drop fall down her face. In the background, Shoko and Megumi could be seen snickering at both of them. Gojo started swiping at the book, looking through its pages quickly before crying out, "They found it!" He then started reading out loud through the parts of the book relating to how the summoning the Shikigami of the 10 Shadows works, which, just as Megumi hypothesized, is true. The size, speed, and strength of the Shikigami is directly proportional to the amount of cursed energy provided for the Shikigami. Seems like your abnormally gifted cursed energy reserve subconsciously buffed up your Shikigami, making them much stronger in base than all of the previous 10 Shadows users. "I'm sorry, what does that really mean, Gojo-san?" Tsumiki, who isn't all that adept or knowledgeable in Jujutsu, asked. Shoko responded before Gojo could and stated matter-of-factly, "It means your brother is a really gifted sorcerer who could be the strongest 10 Shadows user ever born." A smile climbing onto her face, happy for the boy. "Exactly. It means I was right, your brother could really give me a run for my money one day, if he works hard enough at that." Megumi gained a steeled, determined look on his face, which was accompanied by a surge in his cursed energy which gained an air of refinement. His very soul responding to his silent declaration of resolve and willpower. A fact that was not missed by either sorcerer, each of them gaining a very excited grin. "Ha ha, good then. I like your enthusiasm. You're coming with me tomorrow and we're getting you some actual experience in the field," Gojo declared heatedly, with Shoko, who is usually the more calm and level-headed of the two, actually agreeing with him as she knows firsthand that such a drive for strength must be nurtured and allowed to grow. Megumi responded to this with a steeled glare and a firm nod. However, his elder sister, who wasn't as in tune with the sorcerers in this matter, questioned cautiously, "Wait, wouldn't it be dangerous? He's still 7, don't you know?" Gojo turned to her and announced, not as a boast but as a statement of a natural fact of the universe. "Don't you worry, Tsumiki-chan, he will be fine. After all, I'm the strongest. Do you have your handkerchief?" Tsumiki questioned her younger brother incessantly, who just nodded back. She looked as if she had aged 10 years in a day. Her worry all originates from the fact that her 7-year-old younger brother would soon go on a mission with their guardian Gojo Satoru. Although she does trust Gojo-san with her life, as he had all but saved their lives. Taking them in from her mother's apartment with the dwindling money they had available, picking them up from that life and granting them a new one. If she was being honest, she still wasn't fully accustomed to her new life, although her brother seemed to have adapted to their new life surprisingly quickly. The new house, new school, new friends, and found family are still somewhat overwhelming. Although that isn't to say she hates it, no. Quite the opposite, in fact. If she was being frank, Tsumiki has never been happier in life. Sure, she still sometimes misses her mother, but she barely even thinks of her nowadays. Not to mention her father, she's never even met the man. Although Megumi looks quite similar to him from whatever pictures she remembers. Oh, how she wishes she could help Megumi. Her brother seemed to be in a world of his own that she couldn't truly tap into. She could never truly relate to him in the way Gojo-san and Shoko-san could, her inability to see and interact with the world of Jujutsu holding her back from being able to do so. But she couldn't drag him down to her level due to her own failure, so despite it all she must take care of him in every way she can, no matter how small. "You don't need to worry, Tsumiki, I'll be careful. Besides, Satoru-san will be there, won't he? He'll make sure I'm safe." Megumi dismissed her worries as unfounded as he turned around and opened the front door to leave. Be careful! Tsumaki called out at him before he left. I will be. As Megumi walked out the door, he saw Gojo waiting for him at the end of the property with a black car. The white marble of the foyer reflected the setting sun onto his eyes, causing him to squint slightly as he made his way to the car. Took you long enough. I thought you chickened out, Tilda. Gojo teased as the younger boy was coming to the car. You know that I wouldn't. I'm committed to this, Satoru-san. Let's head out. The raven-haired boy replied, not seeming very affected by Gojo's taunts. Okay then, you buzzkill. Let's go. Gojo said as he entered the front passenger seat. Megumi entered the back passenger seat right after him. Forgive me, but I am not so sure of you bringing along a child so young along with us on this mission, Gojo-sama. Are you absolutely certain of this? A dark-haired man with glasses who was in the driving seat questioned Gojo. Don't you be a worrywart too, Ijichi, we'll be fine. Nothing bad will happen to the boy, I'm gonna be protecting him. He couldn't be more safe, after all. I am the strongest. The honored one stated, not worried in the slightest, but instead he carried a smirk that conveyed nothing but pure ironclad confidence in his abilities. Ijichi sighed a sigh that told a tale of too much history and time being used to Gojo Satoru's shenanigans before he resigned himself to agree with him, as despite his resignation with this, he couldn't refute Gojo's point. He was the strongest after all. Kiyotaka Ijichi is a relatively tall man with a slim figure with mid-length black hair that shapes his head and parts across the front of his forehead. He has small black eyes and normally wears glasses. He has curved black eyebrows and sunken cheeks that give him a resting bored expression across his face most of the time. Kiyotaka sports a normal manager's uniform, which includes a black suit and tie attire. Very well, Gojo-sama, I shall take us to the Cursed Spirit Hot Zone. You've already heard his name from me, but this is Kiyotaka Ichiji. He is a window that is responsible for the auxiliary managers. He used to be a student at Jujutsu Tech, but I made him quit cause I knew he would get himself killed. He takes care of some missions for me and we work together sometimes. Gojo laughed out as he put Ijichi down while complimenting him in his own special way. Truly, the special grade sorcerer is a special being. Nice to meet you, Ijichi-san. Thank you for looking out for me, but that won't be necessary. I will be fine. Megumi asserted. Nice to meet you too, Megumi-kun, and forgive me for any offense from my assumption. None taken. Some time later, so this is the Cursed Spirit Hot Zone ho. Megumi looked upon a dilapidated restaurant that looked like it hadn't opened in years. Its name was Kumar's Pizzeria. It had a mascot of a brownish-black bear on the broken neon sign that had its name. Yep. Apparently this place used to be a really popular pizzeria back in the 1980s. But back in 1987, 5 kids went missing in the restaurant, never to be seen again. Gojo explained in a faux spooky voice, waving his hands in the air. Ijichi could be seen next to the car reading from a report before explaining, as Gojo-sama said, those kids went missing and since then the restaurant closed. Oddly enough, on this report it says that the kids went missing in 1983, but what had sealed the deal on the closing was that during a prank gone wrong, a child named Devonja had lost his frontal lobe to the main animatronic of the establishment. There had been reports of many teenagers disappearing around this area. We believe that they had gone missing after going into the pizzeria either to have fun or as a dare. The why doesn't matter, but we believe that according to the Cursed Energy signature readings, there is at the very least 1 or 2 grade 3 cursed spirits within this building, with many other grade 4 cursed spirits haunting the hallways of the restaurant. Your job is to go in there and clear it. Alright then, Ijichi, do your thing, commanded Gojo with excitement at the nearing mission start. Yes, Gojo-sama, ahem. Ijichi coughed into his hand before pulling it up and twisting his fingers into a specific pose. Emerge from darkness, that which is darker than darkness. Purify that which is impure. Megumi watched on in fascination, making sure to remember the pose and phrases that Ijichi used. The spell the window employed worked just as intended, as a black veil fell from the sky around the abandoned pizzeria, hiding it and any jujutsu activities from the general public. Without further talk or consideration, they walked to the building, through the veil and into the restaurant, immediately spotting some fly heads, a very weak type of grade for curse able to be taken out by simple seals by even the weakest sorcerer, and were often used to test if civilians can see cursed spirits. Divine dogs. Megumi, without hesitation of further thought, brought his hands together in the hand sign for the latter Shikigami. The dogs flying out of the twin abysses formed at their master's feet and instantly speeding over faster than the fly heads could hope to react, and ripping them apart before bringing the head of a fly head each to their master. Good boys, Megumi simply said as he patted their heads and continued on, exorcising various grade for spirits with relative ease, with Gojo walking behind him observing everything. As they made their way towards the back rooms of the restaurant, they looked around, taking in the sights of the restaurant around them. It seemed almost alive, the seats out of place with some empty plates on tables that haven't been cleaned in years. The entire restaurant was caked in dust, and yet it gave the feeling of walking into a slice of the past. Most unnerving of all, there were hanging decorations that spelled out Happy Birthday Evan, with happy birthday cone hats lying around with the same name, Revan, on it. Sheesh, grim her. Gojo grimly chuckled at the monument to lost childhoods, trying to lighten the mood. You're right about that, this place is really weird. It feels almost alive, like it had never fully closed down. Megumi reasoned, seeming not shaken in the slightest. Looking around, he could see some spots and places where the dust isn't on the same level as others, almost as if somebody had moved things around. Before the older man could reply, a grim and broken voice cried out from the hallway to their right. I bit someone. Both sorcerers swiveled around faster than they thought possible before laying their eyes upon the grade 3 cursed spirit. It was a bear, all right. But it was standing, bearing such a monstrous appearance that it had taken breath straight out of the younger boy's lungs. It had a mottled golden color with various splotches of brown and had many tears and holes throughout its body. It wore a purple bow tie and small top hat with a black stripe. But more distressingly of all, it had two defining features, a large mouth splitting its head in two with countless razor-sharp teeth stained a deep crimson red, and across its belly it had another mouth with somehow even more teeth that had crimson blood dripping from it. I bit someone, I didn't mean to. He died, I am sorry, I didn't mean to. It cried out horrifyingly from its mouth belly before it started shuffling forward towards the duo and the twin dogs with its hands out. Toad. Quickly summoning his second Shikigami in response to the threat, the toad jumped out of Megumi's shadow, now even bigger than earlier. Standing at a staggering 8 meters tall, his soul and body responding to the change in circumstance, a fact that, while not considered by himself, Gojo had not let go past him. The Shikigami didn't need to hear their master's orders, as they instinctively knew to move in all haste to protect their master, the toad lashing out with its tongue, throwing a nearby table at the horrifying incarnation of childhood trauma and loss. The twin divine dogs weren't that far behind, running forwards and swiping their paws at the spirit before Blizzard bit at its ankles and pulled back, causing a river of blood to explode, gushing out of the spirit, making it cry out in pain and fall to its knees, all the while making constant disturbing apologies. The cursed spirit lashed out with its mouth belly, its body twisting and deforming to unnatural proportions that defied nature, a large metallic scoop-like tongue flying out of its gargantuan orifice and speeding towards Blizzard, who dodged the unnatural limb by jumping on top of it, and then proceeding to run across it towards the main body before slashing at it with its paw, causing a large gash on its side. Then jumping a few feet away from the lumbering beast. I'm sorry, it was just supposed to be a prank. The monster cried out. Not paying any attention to its nonsensical pleadings, NYX was not far behind his brother as he jumped at the spirit, grabbing hold of its arm and falling behind it while pulling, causing its arm to rip out of its place with a sickening crack. The toad, not to be outdone, followed up by throwing out its tongue and grappling the bear before grabbing its leg and pulling it into the air upside down, leaving it completely open to a follow-up attack. The master of the 10 shadows, not one to be outdone by his minions, ran up, unsheathing a wakizashi from his hip and stabbing straight at the spirit, his fever and lust for battle unconsciously fueling his strength as his body performed cursed energy reinforcement reflexively. He drove the blade straight into the open maw of the beast with a swift strike, causing the beast to flinch and shiver for a moment before giving up and going limp, fading away into dust mere moments later. The boy panted for a small moment, unsummoning his Toad Shikigami and his Black Wolf NYX, leaving Blizzard, who came up to his owner to cheer him up. Gojo Satoru could not keep a smile off of his face. Not only had his chosen child cleared a cursed spirit hotspot and taken down a relatively strong grade 3 cursed spirit at the mere age of 7, he had also reflexively utilized cursed energy reinforcement without any prior guidance to exorcise the spirit swiftly without any damage taken on his side. Hee, congrats Megumi! You are officially a grade 4 Jujutsu sorcerer, the second youngest to become one in recorded history. Second only to myself, of course. You really don't need to worry so much, Tsumiki, I'm fine. The cursed spirit wasn't even able to so much as touch me. Megumi tried in vain to dissuade his elder sister from her worries. Of course I have to worry, Megumi. You're only 7. I still can't believe you went through with this, I thought you knew better. Tsumiki said as she kept looking around his body for any bruises and scrapes he got from the curses. You sure you never got hit by them? Not even a little. Shoko giggled at their antics from the side. It reminded her of her family back home. While as overbearing as Tsumiki was, it only showed how much she cared for her brother. She got up from where she was leaning on the table and went over to the two of them. It's all right, Tsumiki-chan, I'll look over him and make sure he doesn't have any injuries he's hiding from you. The younger girl sighed a breath of relief as she backed off, allowing the brown-haired woman to come close to Megumi. Shoko leaned forwards, slightly exposing her ample bust as she grabbed the young boy by the shoulder and focusing slightly. Her hazel brown eyes started to subtly glow, making her seem even more gorgeous than normal as she looked over Megumi's body. The cursed energy in the surrounding area surged while Shoko was observing. Something that Megumi caught and took note of, making sure to remember the feeling. You never know when an enemy might be observing you and looking for weaknesses. I don't see anything out of the ordinary, but just to be safe I'll give him a dose of positive energy. Anything that I might have missed will be soothed right out. If nothing else, it'll feel relaxing for him. It was then that Megumi felt it. It wasn't the first time, but it was only now that he's gotten the hang of sensing cursed energy that he could truly understand the miracle that the young healer was performing. It was cursed energy all right, way more of it, but somehow it felt different. More dense than he usually felt, passively dispersing from Shoko. But the main difference was the way it felt to be in the presence of. Cursed energy in its most base form is negative energy, energy created from the most base instincts of humanity, fear, hatred, envy, and more. But reverse cursed technique is the exact opposite of that. It utilized positive energy, a type of energy that most wouldn't be able to channel or use for their entire lives. Instead of the usual oppressive pressure that came with negative energy, positive energy gave off a very welcoming aura. As it came into contact with his body, any fatigue or tiredness over the day had simply faded away. His mind felt refreshed. He almost felt like he just awakened from a long and restful sleep. Anything that was there should be gone now, Shoko said as she pulled back and took her hand away. I'm back. They turned around to look at the source of the sudden noise, only to see Gojo throw open the door and take a pose with his arms spread wide. Oh, it's just you, Megumi said with a deadpan expression on his face, not seeming all that impressed. Gojo stumbled slightly from his place, slightly losing his Cheshire grin. Shoko snickered at his failed entrance while Tsumiki looked more embarrassed for Gojo than the man was for himself. The white-haired man didn't let himself stagger for long as he stood up and walked over to Megumi and said, well, I don't appreciate you ruining my entrance, but you did earn this, so here. Gojo handed over a small ID card that had Megumi's face on it with some of his details. On the top it was named Sorcerer ID. Most interestingly, it had Megumi's current sorcerer grade on it, grade for sorcerer, in bold font. With that you can go in and out of Jujutsu Tech buildings without needing to ask us. You can also take some small missions, but that comes later on when you're older and stronger. Now then, I have only one question for you, Megumi. Now that you've seen what is to come, the true horror of our world, do you still want to be a sorcerer? Gojo's grin told everyone in the room he already knew the answer and just wanted to hear it from the boy. Shoko leaned back against the wall, pulling out a cigarette, lighting it up before taking a deep drag out of it. While she seemed nonchalant, in truth she was incredibly interested in the raven-haired boy's answer. Tsumiki looked between the two of them, seeming unsure of the situation before deciding to stay by her brother's side no matter what he chose. Megumi's posture at first glance seemed relaxed, but a more perspective gaze would notice the subtle tension in his body, hinting at his complete and utter attention. If this was the me back in my old life, then I might have backed down and not been able to look him in the eyes, but now. He looked to the side at his elder sister, who looked worried for him, at Shoko, who was unable to hide her interest and intrigue in him. He then looked back into Gojo's eyes. He wasn't wearing his sunglasses, revealing his eyes. They were beautiful, the color of the sky, a breathtaking ocean blue. His eyes like lapis galaxies gazing at him expectantly. Now it is different. I have someone to protect and a goal to reach. I will surpass not only the original Megumi but my previous self and become the strongest. I will become the strongest sorcerer and surpass you. I will let Tsumiki live an easy life and push back the cursed spirit threat. It was not merely a statement of pride or hubris. It was a declaration of his all-encompassing ambitions to not only become great, but the greatest to ever live. The very heavens above responded to the boy's sincere vow with a bargain. His latent potential will be unlocked, as he will have a future like no other, as long as he lives his life, in every living moment moving to fulfill the vow. Tsumiki blushed at her brother's declaration. Shoko chuckled slightly, not in disbelief but because against her better judgment, the tone in his voice makes her feel like he was actually capable of doing so. Most affected of all was Gojo Satoru, the honored one and current strongest sorcerer. His grin expanded as he let out deep belly laughs at the boy. Not at his confidence, but because he finally found someone worthy surpassing himself. Haha, good. I've decided. You will become the next strongest sorcerer alive. I'll make sure of it, and one day you'll surpass even myself. Gojo's hands flew out to the sides as he all but declared him his successor. Your training will start tomorrow. Megumi grinned wildly at that. The next morning, first of all, allow me to explain in detail everything about cursed techniques. Gojo said in front of a portable whiteboard in the backyard of the Fushiguro household. Tsumiki and Shoko could be seen sitting on the porch with lawn chairs enjoying some cool lemonade. Blizzard and NYX were summoned out of the shadow and enjoying the sun together, running after each other and playing, putting a smile on everyone around. Shoko and Tsumiki were both wearing sundresses. They were relaxing, enjoying the sun and cool air. Shoko was wearing a white and brown sundress with pink sakura patterns that showed off her ample bust and was wearing a large sun hat, her outfit showing off her aloof and exotic appeal. Tsumiki wore a beige sundress with yellow sunflower patterns and a smaller sun hat that just enhanced her cuteness. Gojo had a white shirt with the top few buttons opened and black pants with a black belt finishing off his outfit with a pair of sunglasses. No doubt that if any interested women were nearby, they would fall to their knees in love. Megumi was wearing a black t-shirt that had the words t-shirt on it in white kanji and some beige shorts, showing off his youthful and indifferent demeanor, which no doubt would be found attractive by young women eager to fall in love. Gojo started writing on the whiteboard while explaining the ins and outs of cursed energy, beginning with the basics. Cursed energy manipulation is the ability to control the flow of one's cursed energy and channel it to carry out certain functions. It is the foundation for all jujutsu and the first step towards becoming a jujutsu sorcerer. There is a world of difference between being able to sense jujutsu and being able to use it. A good thing to note is that your ability to use jujutsu is dependent on being able to keep a straight head and focus mind, as any disruptions in that will remove your ability to control your jujutsu techniques. Megumi was quite attentive to the lesson, taking lessons as he observed Gojo's demonstrations of cursed energy manipulation. Gojo continued explaining as Megumi took notes. I could compare cursed energy to electricity. It's volatile in nature and difficult to use in its rawest form. While raw cursed energy can be used for its blunt force, it's best used by sorcerers to power their techniques in the same way electricity is best used to fuel electronics. In this case, Cursed energy is flowed into a technique to activate a sorcerer's unique abilities. However, cursed energy does not flow on its own. Control over cursed energy requires innate skill and vigorous training. Gojo finished and then called out to Shoko, "Shoko, the katana." Shoko pulled up her sun hat, looked him in the eye and told him, "Get it yourself." Even though it was right next to her. Tsumaki reached out to grab it and give it to Gojo, but Shoko stopped her and told her the same thing. "He's the strongest, isn't he? He can get it himself." And then proceeded to take a sip of her lemonade. "Good job on the lemonade, by the way, Tsumaki-chan." Tsumaki blushed a little before thanking and sipping some for herself. "UGH, can you please throw me the katana, Skoko-san?" Gojo said unwillingly. Shoko chuckled a little at that before grabbing the katana and throwing it over to him. "There you go, Satoru-kun, tilde." In the background, Megumi snickered at the honored one. Gojo grumbled at her for a moment before going back to his lesson. "Anyways, from today you're going to keep feeding your cursed energy into this katana. This will turn it into a cursed weapon that has an incredible affinity to your technique. You might even be able to channel your shadows or something through it. Although it hasn't been recorded as a possibility in the encyclopedia." Megumi took the katana into his hands and unsheathed it. The blade was a pure white with a golden guard and black and white woven handle. "I will name it Koges." Megumi then sheathed it. "Okay, we still have a bit more theory to finish up on and we can start your physical training. Because like it or not, theory is just as, if not more important to Jujutsu than physicality. So, you've already started doing this reflexively as all talented Jujutsu sorcerers do, but cursed energy manipulation and reinforcement are the most important things a sorcerer must learn. It is what allows you to fight even without access to a cursed technique." Gojo flipped the whiteboard before starting to write on it, Megumi diligently listening in and taking notes sometimes. Applying cursed energy to physical attacks can be as effective as a cursed technique when it comes to gifted combatants who specialize in hand-to-hand combat. So much so that you could be able to contend with low-level special-grade curses with that alone, especially if you're as good as me in it. The amount of cursed energy released by an individual is referred to as their cursed energy output. This applies to both how it's used offensively and defensively. Some can even utilize raw cursed energy as an explosive energy beam to attack. For example, finger bearers are special-grade curses born of a special-grade cursed object that can launch their energy as a projectile and erect cursed energy barriers. Gojo demonstrated this by projecting some cursed energy from his hands in the form of a small blue ball of concentrated energy that he aimed at a small boulder in the backyard. It shot forward with a speed that rivaled a gun. Boom! An explosion reverberated throughout the yard, as even though he had held back immensely, the pressure created from the honored one's demonstration frightened the twin divine dogs and Tsumaki, while the pressure of it ruffled Megumi's hair and blew back Shoko's skirt, briefly showing a slice of heaven. "Hey! Watch it, jackass! You're gonna scare the neighbors!" Shoko angrily exclaimed at Gojo's reckless demonstration. Ignoring her, Gojo continued his explanation by going into another aspect of cursed energy reinforcement. Defensively, you can coat your skin in cursed energy to harden your body and increase its ability to block incoming curse-related attacks. The same application can be used offensively, imbuing physical attacks with cursed energy to increase your destructive power to superhuman levels. Conventional weapons can also be infused with cursed energy to increase their strength. Although you have to be careful, as imbuing too much cursed energy at one time to a normal weapon can compromise its integrity and destroy it, so a sorcerer must only infuse small amounts of energy at a time. Imbuing moderate amounts of cursed energy over time can transform a normal weapon into a cursed tool, which is what I want you to do with Koge. Megumi responded by nodding his head. Gojo concluded by mentioning a rather curious aspect of cursed energy. And finally, we have a rare part of cursed energy that normally I would skip over, since most sorcerers, including myself, don't have access to. There are rare cases where cursed energy carries a special property unique to its user. When applied to their fighting techniques, it can grant them a special texture or effect that gives them an advantage in battle. These special traits cannot be defended by simple reinforcement techniques. Gojo pulled out an old book from his back. Its pages were well worn and aged. They had even turned a shade of yellow. I did some research into it and found the biggest recorded case from ancient history. The strongest sorcerer from 400 years ago, during the Edo period, had this special case. Gojo flipped until he found the page with the sorcerer's information, stopping before turning the book to face Megumi. His name was Kashimo Hajime. His innate cursed technique, mythical beast amber, gave him a special kind of cursed energy. Kashimo's cursed energy has the properties of electricity, which keeps his body in a constant state of electrification and makes all of his attacks impossible to defend against. That, along with his innate technique, hand-to-hand combat, incredible tactical mind and overall skill level, made him the strongest of his era. Tsumiki, who was listening in, showed her awe with Kashimo's description. Megumi seemed less impressed but quite attentive to Gojo's explanation, as he must have a reason for bringing him up. I'm saying this because as you are now, it's still in its infancy before it develops, but your curse energy looks different to these eyes of mine, Gojo declared as he pointed to his 6 eyes. You will develop a special trait in your cursed energy, of that I'm sure. Sometime later in a forest just outside Tokyo. Are you sure you want to do it already? You could train a bit more before trying to subjugate the next Shikigami, you know. Gojo asked Megumi, wanting to make sure he's ready for what's to come next. The raven-haired boy he was talking to had already summoned both his divine dogs and Gamma Toad. That's true. I could wait and train much longer before this, and it would be much safer, but... Megumi raised his hand up to his shoulder, his index and pinky finger bent towards the rest of the fingers, making the shape of snake eyes with his thumb hidden under his palm. But that's how losers think, Megumi declared before starting the subjugation ritual. Great serpent! In front of him an abyssal void opened as from it a gargantuan serpent rose. It was white with a tan-yellow underbelly. The serpent had black markings all over its body, including a symbol on its forehead. The serpent hissed wildly at the summoner before lunging forward to bite at them. Megumi dodged out of the way before unsheathing his katana koge while ordering his divine dogs to attack. NYX was first. He ran forwards and swiped a paw at the serpent, the attack marking the side of it before running ahead to the opposite side of it and waiting in attention. This simple action forces the serpent to keep its attention at 2 places at once in the battlefield, lest it leaves itself open to an attack from behind. Blizzard, not to be outdone by his brother, ran ahead and jumped on top of the serpent while it was looking away at his brother and swiped a paw at the serpent's hide, leaving a mark but not injuring it. The serpent rewarded the wolf by slamming into him with its tail, throwing him away and into a nearby tree, breaking it, bringing the white-haired wolf out of the fight for a moment while it recovers. Megumi was analyzing the fight, looking for a way to get through the serpent's defenses as he thought. This is annoying. This damn serpent's hide is too thick for the dogs or Gamma to do any damage, and it's too big for the dogs to just bite. I could probably get deep enough with Koge, but that would leave me open for a counter-attack, just like Blizzard. Wait! Megumi looked back at where Blizzard was sent through a tree. This can work. Gamma! Grab the broken tree and throw it at the weakened part of the serpent's hide, Megumi ordered with urgency. Gamma Toad jumped into the air and latched onto a nearby rock before grabbing the tree that the serpent had broken with Blizzard and throwing it at it. The action, which was completely unexpected by the serpent, did some damage to its side, breaking into the hide that had already been weakened by NYX's attack and stunning it for a moment. Taking advantage of the great serpent's moment of weakness, both Megumi and NYX rushed forward, ready to land a critical blow to the serpent. Koge glowed in the moonlight as a dark energy surrounded it, Gojo's lesson earlier in the day paying off immensely already, as Megumi's cursed energy reinforcement had strengthened the blade to a realm it hadn't reached before. Megumi stabbed into the serpent's weakened hide as he sprinted along its length, cutting through it like a hot knife through butter. The serpent cried out in pain as its insides were revealed to the outside world, pain shooting through it like lightning. Taking advantage of the serpent's plight, NYX jumped up to its head and bit at its eyes, successfully grabbing hold, his snout deep within the serpent's eye socket and then slamming the head into the ground as he pulled back to rip the eye out. His brother, who had just recovered, ran forward to do the same thing, biting into the other eye and viciously pulling. while Gamma made sure that the serpent couldn't get up from the ground by wrapping it with his tongue and holding its tail down to stop it from moving to save itself. Megumi sprinted till he reached between the divine dogs at the head of the serpent, bringing Koge into the sky, filling the blade with as much cursed energy as he could muster before bringing it down into the serpent's head with a satisfying shick. The serpent stopped moving instantly at that, its body going limp as it faded away as dust into the moonlit sky. A fight that would have been much harder and required more effort if he didn't outsmart the Shikigami and take it down effectively, ended in a matter of mere moments. Megumi panted as he unsummoned all his Shikigami, leaving Blizzard, who came up to him and licked at his face. "Ha ha, yeah, we did it, boy." Megumi laughed out as he petted the wolf. Gojo comes up to him offering a small towel and a bottle of water with a grin matching his own. "You did well." 1 month later, March 2010. Okay, so according to the records, the 10 Shadows user should be able to store anything within a pocket dimension that exists within their shadows, Gojo stated as he was reading from the records. Megumi was sitting down on the ground with his legs crossed, meditating and trying to focus on his shadow. He had Koge laying in his lap. Cursed energy passively flowed into it as he tried to visualize the abyss within him. "An hour later, I can't do it, damn it. It's just not working." A frustrated voice bellowed from Megumi's throat at his inability to master his technique for the past hour. Gojo chuckled a little as he looked at his protege's anger. "Well, of course it's not, dumbass. You're getting heated and losing control of your emotions. Don't you remember my lesson? Your ability to control Jujutsu is directly affected by your ability to keep a calm mind and a steady spirit, so stop getting heated. Calm down, focus on yourself alone. Try to visualize a deep well hiding within your shadows." Megumi did as he was told. He took a deep breath in as he closed his eyes, letting the breath out as he brought his hands together in his lap. A deep well from within his shadows was visualized in his mind. Within it seemed to be an infinite expanse of a sea of void. Now start from within and try to seep your cursed energy within your shadows and visualize the well opening up, just like when you summon your Shikigami. In Megumi's lap, a void of shadows opened up as Koge fell within it. The surprise of it all happening caused his focus to break, the void closing up right afterwards. "Damn, I did it! Thanks, Satoru!" The raven-haired boy exclaimed in excitement. Gojo responded with a smile before prompting him to do it again. This time the void responded much faster than it did before. After he grasped the feeling of doing so the first time, it became much easier. He went to grab Koge out of the void before deciding against it and keeping it there to bring out whenever it's needed. "Good work, Megumi. But now that we're done with that, I need to talk to you about something important," Gojo said as he put the book away and sat down in front of him to look him in the eyes. "HM? Sure, Satoru, what's up?" Megumi looked into his eyes, slightly confused at the change in tone. "As you know, I'll be graduating from Jujutsu Tech soon and I'll become the head of the Gojo clan, so I'll have more responsibilities and I won't be able to train you daily as I have the past month. So I knew I had to talk to you about this before that happens," Gojo explained to Megumi while looking into his eyes. Yeah, I know, what's this about, Satoru?" Megumi asked him quizzically. The white-haired man leaned back and looked towards the setting sun for a moment, before looking back and explaining, "I need you to make a binding vow with me about this." Megumi's eyes slightly widened at this. Binding vows are essentially contracts created through cursed energy that an individual can make with oneself or another person. The act of abiding by the rules and restrictions agreed upon in these contracts can result in a greater power or the achievement of a goal, but breaking a binding vow has uncanny repercussions that could greatly affect the one who breaks them. "Sure, Satoru, I'll do it," Megumi asserted, completely trusting him. "I want you to vow to me that from today onwards, until you become strong enough to tear a special grade curse to shreds by yourself, that you will hone an aspect of strength in each and every day that you have, unless special circumstances happen that make you unable to do so." In response to this, Megumi's gaze and will did not falter. Gojo continued, finishing with, "In exchange, I will give you a weapon that was able to almost kill me in the past." Megumi's eyes widened at the declaration. Is he offering me the inverted spear of heaven? Do you accept this vow, Fushiguro Megumi? Gojo questioned. Megumi took barely a second to think before declaring with all his heart, I Fushiguro Megumi vow with the heavens above as my witness, that from this day onwards, until I become strong enough to tear a special grade curse to shreds alone, that I will hone an aspect of strength in each and every day that I have, unless special circumstances happen that make me unable to do so. Gojo's grin almost mimicked the setting sun behind the raven-haired boy as he also declared, I Gojo Satoru vow with the heavens above as my witness, that if the one known as Fushiguro Megumi completes his vow, I shall grant him the inverted spear of heaven. A weapon that once almost took my life. The heavens above them shook as the sky almost seemed to darken for a moment, before an illusionary chain connecting the very souls of Gojo Satoru and Fushiguro Megumi before fading away. The vow they made came into full effect immediately as Megumi's potential was expanded exponentially even further. Both Gojo and Megumi took in breaths they didn't know they were holding as the ritual ended, looking into the other's eyes. Then, master and student grinned wholeheartedly at the other. A few days later, in the morning, Megumi leaned against a tree within a massive enclosed area. The forest was huge and was filled with animals in which he released Blizzard and NYX to run around and play. Although curiously enough, it lacked any natural predators as all animals within lived without fear. A small slice of paradise. Tsumiki was standing next to him with a smile on her face. She was looking at a stage within a large clearing. The stage had a few people. Gojo Satoru and Shoko Yeri were both on the stage wearing their usual uniforms with a large black robe on the top of it and a graduate cap. In front of them was Masamichi Yaga, the principal of Tokyo Jujutsu Tech and the only teacher that Gojo Satoru had ever respected. Masamichi Yaga was a tall man with a muscular frame and tan skin. He had short, spiky, black hair on top with the rest of his head shaved. He has thick eyebrows and his facial hair consists of a mustache and goatee combination. Like many other sorcerers, Masamichi always sports sunglasses as well. Yaga had 2 decorated certificates in his hands that he handed out to his now former students. The 2 of you joined this school in hopes of growing not only as sorcerers, but as people. You have gone through many hardships throughout your time here, and you will continue to do so over the rest of your life. Yaga looked both of them in the eyes. They both had smiles on their faces as they looked back at him with an air of confidence. Yaga smiled right back at them, feeling proud of his students. But because of how much time I have spent with you two, I know that you will make me and this school proud. Yeri Shoko, Gojo Satoru, you have now officially graduated from Tokyo Jujutsu Tech. Gojo and Shoko took off their caps and threw them into the skies, a symbol of moving forward and becoming better. Claps rang into the sky. Many people were present to witness the graduation of one of the greatest generations of sorcerers in years. Gojo jumped down from the stage, looking back and catching Shoko, who jumped after him. They both walked towards Megumi and Tsumiki. Congratulations, Shoko-san, Gojo-san. I'm so happy for you. Tsumiki was still clapping while congratulating them. Yeah, congrats you too, Megumi said as he stopped leaning against the tree, going up to Gojo and giving him a high five. Before Gojo could respond, a voice spoke up behind him. Congratulations, Shoko. A black-haired woman came up to Shoko and gave her a hug, completely ignoring Gojo. Ha ha, thank you Yutaheim-senpai. I guess we're both graduated now, huh? Shoko said as she patted the young woman's back. Huh? Why are you ignoring me, Yutaheim? Gojo said while pointing at himself, feeling left out. The woman responded by turning around and throwing a knife at him while shouting, Quiet, you disrespectful brat, you don't deserve it. Yutaheim has long blackish purple hair that extends down her back, with some strands tied behind her head, thin eyebrows, brown eyes, and a scar on the right side of her face that crosses the bridge of her nose. She has a blessed figure that has curves in all the right places. Yutaheim wears a traditional Miko outfit consisting of a white kosode and red umanori-styled hakama pants, despite wearing modern brown-colored boots.
Where did she even get that knife from?
Tsumaki questioned in the background, seeming very confused. Calm down, Yutahime-senpai. There's no need to get mad at Gojo-san, it's supposed to be a happy occasion, isn't it? A blonde-haired man with blonde hair called out as he was walking towards the group. Nanami is a tall, well-built man with blonde hair styled with a neat part. Nanami has very thin eyebrows as well as small eyes that are covered by special sunglasses, which don't have arms that wrap around the ears. Nanami wore a blue shirt with a yellow-black spotted tie and beige office pants. "Oh Nanami, when did you change your hair?" Gojo asked in slight awe. Nanami ran a hand through it, pushing it back slightly. "Just yesterday, I decided that since you're gonna be gone soon, I should have a small change to celebrate." "That's so hurtful!" Gojo cried out comically while Shoko chuckled at him while leaning on a nearby tree, pulling out a cigarette and taking a small drag. "Shoko, didn't you promise me you'd quit? At least don't smoke on your graduation day. There are some higher-ups around, you might anger them." Yutahime nagged at Shoko for smoking even though she promised her prior that she would stop soon. "Damn em," the brown-haired healer said as she took another drag, causing Yutahime's and Tsumaki's jaws to drop while the others just chuckled at her indifference. "You got another one, Shoko-san? I promise to pay you back, Tilda." A sultry voice came from behind Shoko. "Oh? My, you're here too? I assumed you'd skip this since no one would be paying you to come," Shoko said, slightly surprised before passing her a cigarette anyways. After lighting it and taking a drag from it, she said, "With so many Jujutsu higher-ups and Jujutsu Tech alumni here, this is a perfect opportunity to do some networking. Of course, I came here for you too as well, I wouldn't miss it for the world, Tilda." Mai is a young woman with light peach skin and small, sharp dark brown eyes with thin eyebrows. She wore a suit and tie with her white hair kept in a high ponytail and two parallel bangs that left her face completely unobscured. She had an hourglass figure with ample assets, causing her tie to slightly sink in between her breasts. Gojo laughed a little. "That's so like you, Mai, you never change." Mai giggled with him as well before saying, "Why would I? I'm perfect as I am now," causing many in the group to either laugh with them or shake their heads. "Oh Tilda, and this is a perfect time to finally meet you, Fushiguro Megumi, right? Aren't you a cute one, Tilda? I hear Gojo took you under his wing and is training you personally." Mai turned to Megumi, who felt his cheeks heat up slightly. "Hey, why do I suddenly want to beat up this woman?" Tsumaki wondered to herself as saw her brother react oddly to the white-haired woman as a blood vessel in her forehead bulged up. "That's right, he's really talented. He took in all my training and lessons quickly and managed to take down cursed spirits alone at almost the same age as me. He might even be stronger than me one day." Gojo eagerly bragged about his student. But before said student could answer Mai for himself, a mocking tone called out a few meters away from the cheerful group, causing them all to tense up. In the distance, the twin divine dogs, sensing their master's change in mood, sprinted back to protect him. So the great Gojo Satoru admits that the Zenin clan's 10 shadows is a better cursed technique than the Gojo clan's limitless and 6 eyes? And to also see you taking back talk from a woman is really humiliating, you white-haired menace. A blonde-haired young man with an arrogant expression on his face. "I came here to see what this filthy school will do to commemorate a special grades graduation, and quite frankly, I am not impressed." He ended with a sneer. Gojo already had an annoyed expression on his face and was about to reply before a hand landed on the blonde-haired man's shoulder, breaking the two of them out of their stare down. "Ha, don't you let my son disturb you all from the celebration. Come Naoya, this is no time to be antagonizing them." An old man with grey hair and a good of sake said before drinking from it deeply. Naoya is a relatively tall young man with a fit build. He has sharp brown eyes and dyed blonde hair accented with his dark green roots. He believes himself to have an appearance befitting a clan head. He wore a traditional attire that resembles most of his clan members. He sports a white long-sleeved shirt that buttons at the collar underneath his dark blue kimono. He completes his outfit with light-colored hakama bottoms and sandals. "No Abato Zenin and Naoya Zenin, what brings you two here?" Megumi was the first to speak up, walking in front of his sister to distract them from her and grab their attention. "Zenin Megumi, nice to meet you again after so long. Has Gojo been treating you well?" He looked to the side to see the twin divine dogs reach their owner and stand by him ready to attack, which he smirked in satisfaction at. "It's good to see that you have been honing your 10 shadows already." Naobito has mid-length, grey hair that is usually slicked back to reach just behind his neck. He has small black eyes with long eyebrows with thick edges. Naobito also sports a long, thin, English-style moustache that extends beyond both sides of his cheeks. The 26th head of the Zenin clan casually wore a brown yukata with a black sash. Naobito drank again before responding to his original question. "We're just here to say our congratulations to Gojo Satoru on graduating Jujutsu Tech and finally getting closer to claiming his position as head of the Gojo clan." "Thank you, I look forward to working with you, old man," Gojo said snidely from the side, drawing Noea's ire for his disrespect towards a clan head even if he was the heir of the Gojo clan and its to-be leader, and making Shoko and Mai giggle slightly, which angered Naoya even further at their audacity. Naobito didn't seem to be insulted in the slightest, simply laughing before he said, "To you as well, Gojo. But our time is up here. I am busy with clan matters, so I must leave. I'm sure you understand." Naobito and his son turned around to walk away before he looked over his shoulder at Megumi and muttered under his breath, "See you soon, Zenin Megumi." The group stayed tense for a moment as they left before slowly starting up conversation again. Somewhere far away, a man with long hair with a messy bun at the top looked away from a burning village, dead bodies lining the ground of the village as hundreds of curses ranging from grade 4 to grade 1 ruled the streets, eating alive any human they found, and left the village in rubble. He looked into the skies before muttering wistfully under his breath, "It's March 23rd, isn't it, huh? I hope you're having a great day, Satoru, Shoko?" Leaving the rest of his words unspoken, before straightening himself, hardening his gaze and turning away from the broken village before walking away. The curses within it, one by one fading into the void. "Let's go, Hanako, Mimiko. We have much more work to do," the man resolutely said with an air of disturbing determination about him. Two twin girls, one with brown hair holding a doll and one with blonde hair looking at her phone, both stood up from where they were sitting and followed him with adoration and worship in their eyes. "Yes, Geto-sama." A few months later, 7 p.m. Sounds of exertion could be heard from deep within the forest of Jujutsu Tech. Coming closer would reveal a young boy fighting barehanded with some shikigami. An even closer look would reveal him to be blindfolded. Megumi turned around to block a paw from NYX with his hands that were glowing with a faint grey and black energy before throwing a haymaker that sent the dog flying away for a moment before he dug his feet into the ground and stabilized himself. Although he succeeded in blocking the attack, he moved too slowly to block a large tail coming at him from behind, which slammed into him, throwing him away into the air. This brought him straight into the range of Gamma, who grabbed him with his tongue by his leg and threw him into the ground, causing him to get the wind knocked out of him, before it grabbed its stunned target yet again and threw him back to the serpent. The serpent was ready for this and caught the boy before forming a constriction coil around him, crushing him and making him gasp in pain. Okay. You win. Let me go." Megumi cried out in pain, completely unable to fight back after he was tag-teamed efficiently by his shikigami. The raven-haired boy felt immediate relief as he was released, allowing him to take in air again. He panted before falling to his knees. Blizzard comes up to him to comfort him, licking at his face. "God damn, you guys are hard to fight alone. Even as I am holding back as much as I am," Megumi said as he removed his blindfold. Megumi has been doing this training every day for the last few months ever since his promise with Gojo Satoru. And while he has improved, he still isn't quite used to it. At first he couldn't even hope to fight back, he got dominated instantly. Nowadays he is able to somewhat keep up with them, fight back and block some hits. Although if they get some hits in and start to coordinate, he gets overwhelmed quickly. This training exercise served to fill multiple roles in his training. First of all, it honed his ability to sense his Shikigami without having to see them. This would be imperative as it would allow him to coordinate with them as if it was second nature without the need of sight and eventually even speech. Secondly, it honed his ability to sense cursed energy within his surroundings. The benefits of such a thing is obvious, as a heightened sensitivity for cursed energy would make him capable of keeping up with fights that his eyes alone couldn't hope to compete with. Thirdly, it gave him more experience with manipulating cursed energy as he would be able to practice cursed energy reinforcement against actual enemies. This would increase his efficiency with cursed energy and allow him to stay in fights for much longer by learning to use it efficiently without wasting any. And finally, it would give his Shikigami an opportunity to practice their teamwork, this being essential as having to say his commands out loud would alert his opponents of his plans. With this they would be able to work together without his input. It would also give them more experience in battle as Shikigami keep memory between summons. Okay, it's getting late so I should head back home. Megumi rubbed some dirt from his cheek as he looked up at the dark sky and he stood up, unsummoning most of his Shikigami leaving Blizzard. Megumi walked tiredly to Blizzard before getting on his back, laying down face first into his fluffy coat and tapping on his side before speaking up with some effort. Blizzard, take me home please, rough. Blizzard said happily before running off with great speed. Later that morning, Tsumiki sighed as she handed Megumi a large plate of breakfast. You should really take it easier on yourself, Megumi. It really isn't healthy for you to be training so much. You're still only 7, you know. She had a cute pout and a slight blush as she glared her younger brother down. I'm fine, Tsumiki, really. Just a little tired. Nothing I can't handle. Megumi reassured before he started shoveling down his breakfast of white rice, grilled salmon, scrambled eggs and some steamed vegetables. His stomach seemed bottomless as he ate way more food than a 7-year-old should realistically be able to put down. I still don't know how you can eat that much. Is it really that good? Tsumiki questioned. It's great, Tsumiki. You never miss. Megumi's casual impromptu compliment caused Tsumiki to blush before she sat down and started eating her own food. It looked like it was gonna be a quiet morning, and it was for a while before Megumi got a call from Gojo telling him to meet him at Jujutsu Tech. Megumi looked at his sister who simply sighed lightly before resigning. Go, just make sure you come back home before dinner. Megumi simply went over to her and kissed her on the forehead before running out the door. Tilda, what am I gonna do with him? She said exasperatedly before turning on the TV and started watching a show called Singular Fragment. Monkey D. Buffy? What a stupid name. What's up, Gojo? Megumi said as walked into a traditional dojo on the Jujutsu Tech campus. Yo, Megumi. As you know, I recently became the head of the Gojo clan and I'll be busy for a while before I can come back to start training you again. So until then I have recruited a teacher for you. In the meantime, he will teach you swordsmanship. Gojo patted the back of a gruff man with a katana at his hip. This guy here is a grade 1 sorcerer that could be called the strongest first grade. And he did this without any cursed techniques. It's quite impressive. Hey kid, my name is Atsuya Kusakabe. I'll be your swordsmanship tutor for a while, at least until you master my style. The gruff man said as he pulled out a cigarette and started smoking. Atsuya is a tall man with spiky brown hair and sharp dark eyes. Atsuya wears a dust brown peacoat over a white dress shirt with a jade necktie, black pants and black shoes. Nice to meet you, Kusakabe-sensei. I'll be in your care. Megumi brought his fist into his hand and bowed respectfully to the master swordsman. Who? Why aren't you that respectful with me, you brat? I'm your teacher too, aren't I? Gojo questioned indignantly. Kusakabe replied to Megumi as he said, don't worry about it, kid. I'll make sure by the end of our training that you'll be able to hold your own against even the best of swordsmen and women. You just have to commit yourself fully to my training. Of course, Kusakabe-sensei, I will. the raven-haired boy said while nodding resolutely to his now teacher. Are you both ignoring me right now? Are you for real? Gojo seemed almost like a sad puppy that was being ignored by its owner. Neither Kusakabe or Megumi even acknowledged him as they both walked away while talking to each other, exchanging small talk about their lives. Gojo looked at them leaving after completely ignoring him, looking dejected before crying out, "I don't need to take this, damn it, I'm leaving." "You better teach him well, Kusakabe." Gojo then teleported away in a flash of blue light. "Do you need a sword so we can begin, or do you have your own?" "I don't see it on you, but I heard from Gojo something about you having an inventory." "Whatever that means." "He meant that my cursed technique allows me to open up a pocket dimension within my shadow that can store anything I want for me, as long as I can bear the weight of whatever I put in there," Megumi stated before he crouched down to the ground to demonstrate. He reached into his shadow, as a void opened up within it. His arm up to his forearm went within it as it disappeared from view. His shoulder seemed to tense up slightly as if it was bearing the weight of something before he pulled up, revealing a sheathed katana. Megumi straightened himself as he unsheathed the blade. His name is Koge. The blade that used to be a pure white seemed to have some specks of a darker color along the edge. "A good blade. I assume he's been having to drench it with your cursed energy and store it within your technique to make it form a cursed weapon that's highly compatible with your technique in order to be able to channel it through the blade efficiently." Kusakabe proved himself as a master in swordsmanship and jujutsu as he cleverly uncovered Gojo's plan after observing Koge for mere seconds. Yeah. That's exactly it. Wow, you're good at this, Kusakabe-sensei," Megumi said with an air of awe about him. The man just dismissed this. "No, I just have some experience is all. I'm nothing compared to the real monsters in our world." Kusakabe then went on to explain the main parts of his teachings. "My plan for you now is to teach you my style of swordsmanship, new shadow style." Kusakabe then held his katana's grip and unsheathed it, and held his blade out. "My swordsmanship works with a simple domain at its basest form. So I will teach you that when you are ready. For now, I will train you to make sure your physical abilities are up to par to use my swordsmanship effectively." New shadow style, huh? How fitting. Megumi thought, amused slightly. He then held his sword out in a lesser imitation of his master's form. "Yes, Kusakabe-sensei." "Ready? Go." Before Megumi could even blink, the master swordsman was already on top of him, swinging down, his blade slamming into his own with a shower of sparks, bringing the younger boy to his knees. "He's too fast. I couldn't even react." Megumi tried to swing his sword at his opponent, but as his sword swung out, it hit nothing as Kusakabe had already all but disappeared. "Behind you!" a simple monotone voice called out. Megumi swirled around to try and defend himself, but he got hit with a heavy haymaker to his chin that sent him flying away. "You're too slow, your form is sloppy, and you can't even react to any of my moves." Kusakabe's tone of voice made his voice almost unrecognizable, his usual tired and lazy persona left behind as it was replaced by cold hard indifference. Megumi struggled as he pulled himself to his knees, holding his jaw while panting heavily as he looked at his master. "Freaking hell, kindest sorcerer, my ass. That shit hurts. So this is the reason why he's considered the strongest first-grade sorcerer by Nanami, Mai, and even Gojo to an extent. Behind that tired coward persona he's actually a monster just like the rest of them." He looked up at the grade 1 sorcerer. In a haze of pain and dust the man looked terrifying, covered in a veil of brown cursed energy with glowing grey eyes. Megumi dragged himself to his feet knowing that he was about to lose. He forced himself to ignore his aching jaw and get in stance. "I've seen enough, let's finish this. We have much to work on." Megumi grit his teeth and sprinted at Kusakabe. He drew his blade back and swung it at Kusakabe, who clashed his blade against his, easily winning the contest of strength as he pushed his blade down his opponent's. Sparks flew out of the exchange as Kusakabe's blade reached Koge's hilt and swung up. This movement wrenched the katana out of Megumi's hand as it flew into the sky. He then brought his blade to Megumi's neck and stopped. Koge fell onto the ground behind him as it sank to the ground blade first.
"Do you yield?"
he said as he brought the blade closer to his neck. Its razor-sharp edge drew a drop of blood.
"Yes,"
Megumi exclaimed with sweat pouring down his neck. Kusakabe drew his blade back and masterfully sheathed it.
"Let's go, we have a lot of work to do,"
the gruff man said as he walked away, lighting another cigarette and taking a deep drag as he did.
"Freaking hell, I'm in for a real beating, aren't I?"
Megumi continued his training with Kusakabe for the next year. Each day he would teach him something new about jujutsu and fighting. Every time they sparred he still lost handily without being able to land a single blow, but he was adapting and getting better. His schedule was completely filled. In the morning he would wake up early and take a short jog around the neighborhood. He would come back and Tsumiki would usually have breakfast ready. After some contemplating and a lot of convincing Tsumiki, he dropped out of school and devoted himself to jujutsu full-time. He would eat with his sister before she headed off to school. He then would either start some more cardio, strength training, or meditation to hone his control over cursed energy. If it was Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday, he would head over to the dojo where he would train with Kusakabe in swordsmanship or learn how to use and incorporate simple domain into his swordsmanship. Then in the evening, after a couple-hour break and getting some lunch, he would start group training with his Shikigami. He learned how to use simple domain a month into his training, a fact that blew Kusakabe away as not everyone could pull off a simple domain in their whole lives. It was almost completely unheard of to do it at such a young age and in such a short amount of time. The only person in recent history to be able to do so was Gojo Satoru himself, who opened his first simple domain at the age of 8, a year older than Megumi, and even then it took him a month and a half to learn. It's like witnessing the birth of a second Gojo Satoru. Kusakabe simply marveled at the unrivaled talent of Fushiguro Megumi. Megumi was holding the grip of his sheathed Koge, around him a circle of cursed energy forming. It was blue with hints of black. From his view all you would see is the domain with the rest of the world a shade of grey. In front of him a grade 3 cursed spirit was released from an urn that sealed it away. It flew out of the urn before sprinting at the closest human to it with abandon. Entering Megumi's simple domain. New shadow style, Bato sword drawing. Megumi unsheathed his sword and swung with all his strength, his blade glowing with refined cursed energy. The blade cut through the spirit in a single slash. The spirit cried out for a moment, its two halves separating from each other before turning into dust and blowing away into the wind. Claps rang out in the dojo as Kusakabe congratulated his student. Congrats Megumi, going from taking out a grade 3 curse with the help of 3 Shikigami to taking one out by yourself in a single slash in a matter of months is really impressive. Megumi sheathed his sword before he turned around to his master and bowed in thanks. It's all thanks to you, Kusakabe-sensei. I wouldn't have been able to do this without you. Think nothing of it, kid. You're really impressive. Consider yourself a grade 3 sorcerer. I'll send in the report and recommendation today. Kusakabe said as he put out his cigarette on a tray he brought with him before coming up to his student and putting a hand on his shoulder. You should be proud. Megumi simply smiled at that. 2011, February. Anything new happen in school? Megumi asked before shoveling some soba noodles down his throat. Swallow first before talking, Megumi. And other than making a new friend, not really. Just the same old school day. Tsumiki chastised her brother about his poor dining table habits before answering him. Megumi swallowed a chunk of the noodles and then drank some water to wash it down. Oh? A new friend, huh? What's their name? Megumi asked before he took a bite of some shrimp tempura. Well, if you must know, her name is Fujinuma. We met during a table tennis match. Tsumiki said. She then picked up a bowl of miso soup and sipped from it. Behind them was a sliding door that led to the backyard of the Fushiguro estate. The twin divine dogs, Blizzard and NYX, could be seen running after each other and fighting playfully. In the corner of the yard there was a newly made pond. Gamma could be seen soaking in the pond, scaring the fish around him. The great serpent was coiled around a boulder in the middle of the yard, enjoying the warm sun. Not only were the Shikigami released so they could relax for themselves, this also gave Megumi practice. The summoning and maintaining of his Shikigami also requires a constant drain on his cursed energy reserves to maintain their presence. By summoning his Shikigami and keeping them summoned for as long as possible, he will get used to doing so, and eventually summoning and maintaining his Shikigami would require little to no cursed energy, as he would become so efficient with it the drain would essentially be non-existent. Currently he is able to keep all of them summoned for up to 6 hours. It was shaping up to be a pleasantly quiet morning, until a flash of light bloomed in the middle of the dining room, startling Tsumaki as Megumi drew his blade from his shadow on instinct and sliced at the intruder with haste. New shadow style, Bato sword drawing. His practice with the sword's technique over the months he has been consistently training with Kusakabe has made him able to expand his domain in a second flat. This speed would have taken out any sorcerer and injured a higher level one, but as the blade neared the intruder it merely stopped moving. Who? Oh, it's you. Use the door next time, jackass. And what's with the dumb bandages? Your glass is not working so well, Megumi said, annoyed as he withdrew Koge and sheathed it within his shadow. Oh, but it's not as fun that way. Did YA miss me? The intruder was revealed to be Gojo, who was now sporting some white bandages that covered his eyes. And to answer your question, they're working just fine. I just wanted to try out a new look is all. How do I look? Aren't I simply dashing? Gojo answered before starting to take poses. You look stupid, Satoru. You look great, Gojo-san. Both siblings gave completely opposite opinions at the same time. Who? They turned around and looked at each other questioningly. Why are you being so mean, Megumi? He looks great. The elder sister pouted. No, he doesn't. He looks stupid. Stop complimenting him. It goes straight to his big dumb stupid head. Tsumaki gasped at this and was about to retort. Before the siblings could begin to bicker about with each other, Gojo interjected. As much as I would love to listen to you two argue about my looks, I didn't come here just for this. Oh right, why are you here anyways? Megumi questioned. I am here not only to check on you and your training but also to give you this, Gojo exclaimed theatrically as he pulled out a small card from his back pocket. Your new sorcerer ID, congratulations Megumi. You're officially a grade 3 sorcerer at 8 years old. I can think of anyone other than me, Suguru or Yuki that managed that, Gojo declared with a grin. Tsumaki seemed in awe at Gojo's declaration while Megumi simply smirked. Anyways, it's been a while since we've talked about your training. Tell me, what have you achieved since I left you in Kusakabe's hands? Has he been teaching you well? Megumi went on to explain his training over the past year, from his physical training, his swordsmanship practice and his group training with his Shikigami. An overlong explanation later. RIC, you got down Kusakabe's swordsmanship in under a year and mastered simple domain in a month. Quite impressive. Gojo's grin expanded to cover his full face. Yeah, it wasn't that hard after I got over the physical part and saw it demonstrated a couple times. Megumi dismissed it as an easy feat. Ha ha! Can you believe this guy took Mickey? He beat my record and just dismissed it as nothing special. What a little monster. The older man laughed at the incredulous statement. Tsumaki simply giggled as she had come to expect at least this much from her brother. Speaking of which, Kusakabe never really went into detail about simple domains. I can't really use it or any barriers alone, Megumi confessed. He went on to explain. He told me to ask you to explain it for me, and said you were more knowledgeable about this. Gojo simply grinned. Well, of course I know better, he's good and all, but I'm me after all. He lifted the bandages from his cursed eyes, revealing azure galactic irises that seemed to gaze through him. He put the bandages back and clapped his hands. Alrighty then. Time for an impromptu lesson in barriers. He then snapped his fingers and a whiteboard appeared in the room in a flash of blue.
Okay.
Let's start with normal barriers. Megumi simply reached into his shadow and pulled out a notebook and pen to start taking notes. Tsumaki merely sat on a nearby couch and listened in as she did some homework. Barriers are zones or territories established with Jujutsu. They are generally used to conceal, contain, or deny entry to entities within that space. Cursed techniques that erect barriers are known as barrier techniques. Gojo explained as he drew a rough sketch of a barrier. Barriers are territories of various sizes and effects that anyone with enough cursed energy can learn to create. To surround and protect the user is the most basic use of a barrier. However, some barriers, like curtains, have an outer shell to protect the edge while others do not. Some can even make complex barriers that can be customized with certain conditions using binding vows and talismans, but this takes a certain degree of skill to accomplish effectively. Like barring certain people from a barrier while allowing others in. Barriers also only recognize individuals with cursed energy and they completely ignore inanimate objects and buildings. Megumi nodded, taking it all in. Then we have curtains. A curtain is a barrier with a large dome-shaped outer shell that hides anything within it from outside view. Inside the barrier turns the sky to night, luring cursed spirits out from hiding. Curtains are mainly utilized by Jujutsu sorcerers to maintain secrecy while exorcising curses. Gojo drew a curtain on the whiteboard before telling Megumi to follow him outside. I'll show you an example, Gojo said before walking up to the boulder that the great serpent was sleeping on, who looked at him quizzically. And raising his hand, twisting his index and middle fingers around each other. Emerge from the darkness, blacker than darkness. Purify that which is impure. Upon activation, a dark, almost liquid-like matter dripped down from the sky to form the outer barrier wall in the shape of a half-sphere. As you can see, anything within the barrier will be imperceivable from outside view, preventing non-sorcerers from being able to see any Jujutsu or cursed spirit activity inside. They will only see the environment as it was from the moment the technique is cast. Any sorcerer, even Windows, can perceive a curtain's black outer shell from the outside. Usually, applying enough force to the outer shell of the curtain will break it, as with any barrier wall. However, curtains can also be customized with binding vows to create certain conditions. He then dismissed the curtain, which revealed an annoyed serpent who gave the honored one a side eye before going back to sleep. Then we have a domain barrier. You've already used those in your simple domain, but I'll explain them for you anyways. He snapped his fingers, the whiteboard teleporting in with a flash. Barriers are the foundation of any domain, whether it be a fully expanded innate domain or a simple domain. An environment can be crafted out of cursed energy within a barrier. If that environment is an innate domain and the barrier is imbued with an innate technique, it is considered a complete domain expansion. In other cases, incomplete domains can create or completely change environments within the space of a barrier. Megumi was taking notes at hyperspeed. Gojo finally concluded with, even after a barrier is fully formed, its placement can be moved by the user while they're still in the domain. One way to forcibly close a barrier without the proper skill is to overlay it with a physical structure. However, the barrier imbued with the user's innate technique will not incorporate a can't-miss attack, arguably the greatest strength of a domain expansion. There are some other barriers like the falling blossom emotion from the Zenin clan, but I can teach you that later. The other barriers even I can't use, and only Tengen can, so there's no point in going over them. Gojo shrugged as he stated matter-of-factly. HMIC, thank you. This'll be very helpful. I've been needing something extra to subjugate my next Shikigami. Megumi thanked his teacher as he wrote some final notes and closed his book. Gojo just gave a large grin that seemed to radiate sunshine that almost blinded the younger boy, making him look away. A week later, 9 p.m. Megumi stood in the middle of a clearing with some trees with thick branches in the Jujutsu Tech Forest by his side. All of his available Shikigami were summoned already. They were positioned in specific locations ready to jump in. First of all, let me see if this would work. It would make my life a lot easier. With the heavens above as my witness, I vow to not fully manifest the great serpent of the 10 shadows technique. In exchange, its strength, speed, and size will increase dramatically. The skies above Megumi shook for a moment, before he felt a change occur within his technique. More specifically to his great serpent. Within the inner domain of Megumi's soul, the serpent could be seen as a silver chain appeared and wrapped around its tail. Megumi grinned maniacally as he felt the change. Good, it worked. This will increase the usefulness of the serpent dramatically. Alright, let's do this. The Shikigami heard their master's orders and read it up. The raven-haired boy brought his hands up, hooking his thumbs together and spreading his fingers apart, mimicking the shape of wings. New. An abyss appeared ahead of the 10 shadows user. From within it, a large avian creature flew out. It settled in the sky before letting out a screech and surveying the area around it from its position of high ground, allowing all to look at its majestic frame. New is a large owl-like creature with brownish-orange feathers and a white mask-like skull. It had large wings, 2 sets of talons and human-like teeth. Noticing that it was outnumbered severely and would likely not be able to win a direct fight, New opted to instead move towards the skies where it reigned supreme and use hit-and-run tactics to wear its opponents down. Or at least it would have, had its enemy allowed it to do so. Before New could escape to the skies out of his and his Shikigami's reach, for the final time Megumi brought his hands together, each hand forming a dome as he put them side to side, forming a ball. I wouldn't know where to start if I tried to do this without help, but thanks to Satoru's explanation and demonstrations, this became a simple matter of trial and error. His grin became a sinister chuckle as he started chanting. Improvised barrier technique, hollow cage. Suddenly a barrier made of shadowy chains and steel formed above New. The creature, unable to react to the barrier's sudden formation, flew into it at full speed, slightly stunning itself. The barrier quickly closed down, the chains tightening even further, trapping even Megumi himself within it. Ha, it worked! I am a genius! Megumi ignored his opponent and exploded with laughter and incredulousness at his own talent. He looked down at his hands with awe, before muttering, I can't believe that worked. It was just a shot in the dark that would have made my life a lot easier if it worked, but it did. He looked back up at New, who was covering itself with electricity and trying to slam itself into the chains of the barrier. That's not gonna work, you filthy bird. Megumi stated with an air of grim satisfaction. In exchange for making the inside of this barrier virtually indestructible, I had to make the outside of it as weak as wet tissue paper. If even a toddler threw a rock at it, it would shatter instantly. The only realistic way of breaking the barrier from within now is to defeat me, which you can't hope to achieve. Of course, the completed version would ideally be more resilient, but it'll do for now. He then formed a ball with his right hand and clenched it as if squeezing a stress ball. In response, the chains of the barrier started closing in around them, the diameter of it becoming smaller and forcing New even closer down into the ground. I don't have time to deal with you, I've got better things to do, he said as he dropped his right hand and raised his left with only his index and middle fingers extended to the sky. Serpent, catch! In front of him an abyss appeared as from within the great serpent flew out and into the sky as it bit New within its own domain in the skies and brought it down to its master as an offering. The great serpent was different than before, it was much bigger than before, its hide looked thicker. The marks around its eyes had spread even further, marking its entire body. In its maw, New thrashed around with futility trying to escape. But it was slowly getting more and more sluggish, as if it was being paralyzed. The serpent's fangs biting deep within its body as it seemed to contain a paralytic venom that would have doubtlessly greatly affected Megumi during the subjugation ritual had he allowed it to bite him or any of his Shikigami. Do not worry, you'll be back soon, and this time you'll know to be on the right side, Megumi said with a sadistic tone as he reached into his shadow and pulled out Koge, who had gained some more black specks along his blade. He then swung his blade in a wide arc at the trapped bird's neck. Splurt 2012, June. You're going on your first mission, Gojo declared with a piece of paper in his hands. Ooh? Already? Megumi was confused and slightly intimidated. Yep, The higher-ups decided that at 10 years old, you're finally ready to go on missions. There's been an odd increase in cursed spirit activity and sightings, and they've decided to bring all hands on deck, so they're bringing in our reserves like you," Gojo said as he handed the boy the report. Megumi took it and started reading through for a bit before looking up at Gojo alarmed. "Satoru, this information is old. The latest report here is May 2011? Are you serious? How has it gotten so bad that they can't give me good info? I could be walking into a death trap here." "I know, which is why you won't be going in alone," Gojo theatrically said before he pulled out a file, this one with a sorcerer. The file showed a young man with brown hair. His name was Asahi Takahashi. He is a semi-grade 2 sorcerer that isn't part of any clans. He also has a cursed technique that he calls Blazing Grasp. It gives him the ability to light his hands on fire with cursed energy. He isn't all that strong, but he is competent enough for this mission. I wouldn't worry about him," Gojo said dismissively. Megumi was still taking in all the information from the cursed hotspot and his soon-to-be partner's records to get himself familiarized with everything and be ready for the mission. "Once you're done and got everything you need, head outside. You got a ride to the mission area ready. She'll take care of you. Oh, and also, I know it's your first mission, so I'll do a mission in a nearby city. Any signs of you not being able to make it or something bad happening that you cannot handle, call me." Gojo made sure to have complete and utter seriousness in his voice, a fact that cut deep into Megumi, who wasn't used to him acting this way. Megumi nodded. "Nice to meet you finally. My name Akari Nitta and I'll be your manager for today. I hope we can get along and have some efficient work done." A young woman with short blonde hair that is black at its roots extended her hand to the approaching boy. "Nice to meet you as well, Akari-san. My name is Megumi Fushiguro, but I assume you already know that," he replied as he returned the handshake and looked Nitta up and down. Akari is a fair-skinned young woman of average height. She has pale blue eyes that are framed by light-colored triangle eyebrows. She has messy, neck-length light-colored yellow hair with asymmetrically split bangs. At the top, she has dark roots of black that are swept across the left side of her head. Serving as one of Jujutsu High's managers, she wears a jet black long-sleeved vest with 3 buttons and 2 pockets on the lower sides. Under this, she wears a visibly long-sleeved white shirt and a red tie. She wears grayish-black pants and black boots. "That I do. Shall we?" she said as she pointed back to the car. "Let's go," Megumi said as he opened the door to the car and went inside, Akari going into the front seat to drive. A few minutes of driving later, Akari spoke up. "So, no offense, but don't you think you're a bit young to go on missions already?" "None taken. This is an unusual situation. But do not worry about me. Despite how I look, I am actually strong," Megumi stated with some confidence. Akari looked into the rear-view mirror and into his eyes, studying them for a moment before she accepted it. "If you say so." A few minutes and a pleasant ride later they arrived. Megumi got out of the car and looked towards the mission area, an abandoned middle school. He could sense the build-up of cursed energy already ready. It wasn't anything immediately threatening, but definitely something to keep an eye on. He looked to the side and met his green eyes with a pair of reddish-brown eyes. "So you're my partner for this mission? Seems weird they let a kid with me, but I'm sure they know what they're doing." "Nice to meet you, kid. I'm Asahi Takahashi. Let's get along for this mission, K," Asahi said as he yawned and rubbed the back of his head. "Nice to meet you as well, Takashi-san, and I hope we do." "Alright then, you two. Your mission will be to clear out this cursed spirit hotspot. It's confirmed to contain multiple grade 3 cursed spirits with many other 4th grade curses. It could also have a grade 2 curse, so be careful," Akari said as she read from her report. She then handed them each a small radio before explaining. "Within curtains, mobile phones don't work as the barrier blocks out signals, so use these for communication as short-range radio signals aren't blocked." They both nodded in affirmation at that. "Alright, I'll call down the curtain and await your return. Please be back within 2 hours minimum." Akari proceeded to put her hand up and assume the curtain pose before calling out the chant. Emerge from darkness, that which is darker than darkness. Purify that which is impure. She then turned around and looked them both in the eyes as the curtain formed and started to fall around the building. Godspeed, gentlemen. Megumi and Asahi both nodded and walked towards the building through the curtain, disappearing from view. So what's your technique, kid? You gotta have one, and a strong one if they're putting you on missions this early. My technique is called Blazing Grasp. As the name implies, I can set my hand on cursed fire that's pretty effective on cursed spirits. Asahi demonstrated as he lifted a hand as both of his hands lit on fire with fiery blaze. Megumi turned around and took a good look at him. Asahi was a young man with brown hair. He had reddish-brown eyes that now slightly glowed a deep crimson. He wore a white long-sleeve shirt with some black pants. Seems like a very effective and straightforward technique. But as for mine, I suppose it would be easier to just show you. But essentially I can summon multiple Shikigami that I can control among some other things. Asahi showed a face of interest, prompting Megumi to continue. The raven-haired boy brought his hands together into the pose for summoning the twin divine dogs and called out their names. From his sides the dogs jumped out of his shadow. They took a ready pose as they knew that they were in for a long mission. Neat, these two look decently strong. This'll be a piece of cake. Asahi looked pleasantly surprised. That's not all of them. Who? Megumi's hands took a second pose before calling out his second Shikigami Ogama. A giant toad flew out of an abyss that opened up ahead of him. Whoa, 3 Shikigami? No wonder they let you out on this mission at your age. Your technique is something else. Asahi now looked somewhat impressed. There's more. Megumi stated. What? His hands once again took another pose as behind him another abyss opened up. He called out his most recent Shikigami's name. New. The large owl-like creature flew out. It was much bigger than its ritual version with a wingspan of over 9 feet. The bird flew around the area for a while before settling down on a nearby building. Who? 4? That's insane. This mission will definitely be a breeze. Asahi seemed sufficiently won over and ready to begin. They walked through the front door. The Shikigami followed them in, either through the door like them or in New's case, flying in through a hole in the ceiling that was caused by age and weather. How do YA wanna handle this kid? Asahi said as he cracked his flaming knuckles ready to fight. Let's spread out and take out as many grade 4 curses as we can. If either of us finds a lone grade 3 curse and feels confident enough to take them on, he should do so, but be careful. If met with multiple grade 3s or a grade 2, call for the other and wait to take them out together. Megumi suggested after a moment of thought. Asahi considered it for a moment before lazily yawning and affirming. Yeah, sure, that sounds good. Let's do it. I'll take the right side, you take the left. Alright, if you find anything too much for you to handle, let me know. I'll head over or send a Shikigami to help you out. They both headed separate ways as they explored the facility. Megumi found a few dozen grade 4 curses that he took out without much fuss, either sending one of his Shikigami to rip them apart easily or slicing them in half casually with Koge. This is getting suspiciously easy. It's quiet. In fact, it's too quiet. Megumi looked around himself with suspicion. He then found something. It was hidden between the background radiation of cursed energy around, and without his training with his Shikigami he would have never found it. Megumi lashed out with Koge at what seemed at first glance to be a mere whiteboard, but as his blade hit the surface, the whiteboard had disappeared, revealing a cursed spirit. The spirit instantly lost a hand to his blade as it jumped away alarmed and in pain. Before the curse could choose to attack or run away, NYX sprinted at it and bit its right leg and pulled it to the ground. His brother joined in as he jumped on top of the spirit, overwhelming it in pure strength and size as he grabbed onto its left and pulled. The twin dogs pulled from opposing sides, causing the spirit to be ripped in half and turned to dust within seconds. Good boys, looks like our training is paying off. Megumi said, pleased with his Shikigami's reaction and effective attack without the need of his orders. Then the wall behind him broke open as 2 grade 3 curses ran to try and attack him. Gamma reacted first, sending his tongue out as it grabbed onto one of them and threw them into the air, where they were met with New, who slammed into them with electric sparks, sending them straight towards their master, who awaited with blade at the ready. Megumi then sliced through the curse in a single swing, sending its 2 halves to either side of him. The twin wolves, not to be outdone, ran ahead together. Blizzard was first to attack as he swiped a paw at the curse, cutting into its side as his brother tackled it into a nearby wall. Megumi saw this and pointed at the curse before pulling his finger up and calling out to his awaiting Shikigami. "Serpent, gobble it up." A large abyss appeared ahead of him as from within it, the serpent flew out to complete its master's command and bit at the curse's body. Its first by digging its fangs deep within its victim's body, the venom acting quickly as the curse found itself unable to move. The serpent then widened its tongue and followed through with its original command. The curse laid helplessly as the great serpent devoured it whole with a sickening crunch, instantly exorcising the curse. "Okay, good, I think that's the last of them for now. Let me check in with Asahi." Megumi pulled out the radio and spoke. "Hello? This is Megumi. I cleared a few dozen 4th grade curses and 3 grade 3s. You okay over there?" "Over." Megumi waited for a few moments before a screech sounded out from the radio, followed by Asahi's voice. "Yeah kid, just about done over here too. Let's meet up at the cafeteria." "Over." The man sounded slightly winded, but nothing else that stood out. "Copy." "Over." Megumi started walking off in the direction of the cafeteria. As he opened the double doors to the cafeteria, he instantly saw Asahi, his blazing arms standing out amongst the filth of the cafeteria as a beacon of camaraderie. "Oh, hey kid. You look none the worse for wear. You didn't even get hit. Who trained you? Or were you self-taught?" Asahi asked, curious and somewhat uninterested in the mission. "I was taught by a master swordsman and a great sorcerer," Megumi answered, his words hiding the full truth. "It's not like I want to lie to him, but it's not such a good idea to let it be known by all that Satoru is my teacher." "Ah, I see. Yeah, that checks out." Asahi seemed satisfied with the answer. He was about to continue talking, but then he tensed up. Megumi felt it as well. "That's 2 grade 2 signatures, right?" "Yeah, it is kid. Be ready, here they come," the brown-haired man said as he pulled his arms into a boxing stance and looked towards the kitchen stall, which then proceeded to explode outwards as 2 grade 2 curses flew out and sprinted at them with murderous intent. One was tall with lanky arms, long black hair and face features that were way too long and shifted apart as if it was trying and failing to pass as a regular human being. Its appearance fit right inside the terrifying depths of the uncanny valley. The other was rotund and oblong. Its body seemed unbalanced with an oversized body. Its left arm was as long as its entire body. Its right leg was smaller than a banana, with the rest of its legs being regular-sized. Its most defining feature being that its entire body was covered in small repetitive holes, a sight that would make any normal human shiver from trypophobia. "You take the lanky freak, I'll take the fat bastard," Asahi declared as he sprinted at the aforementioned curse. "Right. Go," Megumi affirmed with his partner and then ordered his Shikigami. New was first to reach as it slammed into the lanky monster with electrified wings, stunning it for a mere moment. Blizzard was second to arrive. He bit at its knee, but it recovered quicker than expected and slammed its foot into the wolf, sending him into a nearby table. Though it landed a hit, its move left it open to a counterattack by the other Shikigami as Gamma ripped a table out of the floor and threw it at the curse, which got stunned, leaving it wide open as Megumi came in and sliced off its right leg with Koge to limit its movement. NYX, who was eager to avenge his brother, ran in and took a bite out of the curse's shoulder, ripping off a huge chunk. Megumi then followed by slicing down at the staggered monster, cutting an arm off. Then Blizzard, who had recovered, came with the finishing blow. He bit at the curse's neck. It struggled for a moment, but without an arm and severely weakened, it couldn't stop its fate, and its neck was ripped open by the divine dog's maw, staining Blizzard's pure white maw a deep purplish crimson. Megumi looked back to Asahi, ready to assist him, tense and ready to sprint forwards. But relaxed as he saw Asahi finish off the spirit with his flaming fists, seeming bruised and slightly disheveled, but not much else. Asahi turned his back to the spirit and looked towards Megumi to see him done with his opponent as well. Good work, kid. I think that's all of them. It's been 2 hours, I'm sure you're tired. Let's go back and report to Akari. Yeah, sure, look out behind you. Splatter. Who? Asahi looked down at his abdomen to see a spiked and monstrous tail spearing right through him. Oh. Guess this is it. Hope you live, Fushiguro-kun. Asahi. It should have been a simple mission, if not for a single fact. Outdated information. This cursed hotspot has been left for too long. This allowed what was supposed to be just a few third-grade curses to evolve into second-grade curses. One of them even being a cursed womb. A cursed womb is a type of cursed spirit that goes under evolutionary stages. They are capable of producing powerful fully fledged curses after the metamorphosis is complete. With enough time and cursed energy, they could even create special grade curses. Under the pressure of death, the cursed womb had evolved into a first-grade curse. With a flick of its newly grown tail, the curse flung Asahi's body aside and into the wall. It got up from the ground with its now giant frame. Its once fat and oblong body had shifted and formed to a muscular form with an unnervingly long, spiked tail. Megumi didn't say anything or even react. He had a lot of training, many lessons. All from great sorcerers, but nothing could have prepared him for this. And in the face of true and sudden death, Fushiguro Megumi froze in fear. The Reborn curse took pleasure in his fear, fueling its cruel power even further. It then lashed out with its tail at its prey. Megumi found himself staring death in the face with a simple thought. Not like this. But while Megumi couldn't get himself to react in time, NYX was not the same. The loyal hound pushed its master away from the way of the tail, taking the hit instead. The tail speared him right through. As Megumi stared at NYX's body, this time his reaction was different. Instead of fear, rage took its place. A rage so hot, it nearly blinded him. No, this thing will die today. NYX's body faded away into shadows that flowed back into Megumi. Not minding that in the slightest, Megumi sprinted forward with all the hate and rage he could muster while shouting out, "Kill this bastard!" Not needing to be told twice, New threw itself at the curse, electricity flaring out. The curse blocked the attack with its arm, but before it could move to smack the owl-like Shikigami away, Gamma grabbed hold of its leg and pulled it out of balance, tripping the curse to its knee. Megumi wasn't far behind, as he got in a stance and lashed out with his blade. Pride's Requiem. The attack cut a huge gash into the curse's side, staggering it slightly as it grabbed its side. Not giving it a moment's rest, Megumi decided to make a gamble to flip the tides. He pointed at the staggered curse and then pointed down and pulled towards himself. "Serpent, drag this bastard to his hell!" The great serpent responded quickly to his command, its maw bit into the curse's other side and clenched. Before pulling back while still gripped tight, the curse tried to stab at the serpent with its tail to free itself, but New came in and deflected the attack with an electrified burst. Megumi, instead of staying back and letting his Shikigami do the dirty work, jumped forward, mounting the curse's frame as he stabbed into its right shoulder with abandon, cutting deep into it. The curse lashed out sluggishly with its left arm, the paralytic venom of the serpent already putting in some work. But Gamma was there to pull Megumi out of the way before throwing him back over it. As he flew, the raven-haired boy dug his blade into the curse's body and dragged across with the power of his momentum. The serpent then dipped into the abyss it came from, dragging the curse with it into the abyss within the 10 shadows. Megumi jumped in right after, the rest of his Shikigami following right after him. Within the world of abyss, there was no ground. It was an all-encompassing abyss with no beginning or end. The spirit, which was still staggered from repeated attacks, semi-paralyzed, and unable to understand where it was now, was then attacked by the great serpent, which rivaled itself in size, knew that utilized Hit and Run and Gamma, who acted as support. Megumi and Blizzard didn't waste time either, as they were both filled with rage and grief over the loss of NYX. Megumi looked Blizzard in the eyes and said, "We will not allow this thing to live after what it's done, and NYX will not be forgotten. He will live on through you, and together you will become so much more than before." Blizzard had an air of resoluteness about him as he looked back at Megumi. He then started to morph, growing in size and changing shape. Divine Dog. Totality. When a Shikigami of the 10 Shadows technique gets killed or destroyed in battle, they can't be summoned or manifested ever again, but its energy is inherited or passed on to the other Shikigami. In this specific case, Blizzard gained the power of his deceased black twin. This allows Blizzard to take a larger, much more powerful form on command, known as Totality. By using Totality, the user can summon a stronger, larger, bipedal, bicollared werewolf-like version of the White Divine Dog. It is a well-balanced Shikigami with the ability to attack, defend, and provide support for its user. Its notable traits are its immense speed and powerful claws capable of damaging special-grade cursed spirits. Megumi turned around to face the curse, which was now battered and beaten. Behind him, Blizzard had grown in size, dwarfing him completely. His arms almost wrapping around his master, with his maw standing at attention, ready to pounce. As Megumi looked into the curse's eyes with hatred and saw an emotion he once felt himself, fear. "Blizzard, fetch!" Blizzard, now powered by the spirit of his fallen brother, jumped, vanishing from his place in a blur of immense speed. The divine wolf tackled the curse and started ripping it apart with its bare hands, his maw rending apart its flesh. The curse cried out in pain but was not able to move to defend itself as the venom of the great serpent took its toll. The curse that once stood tall and reveled in the fear of weaker beings was reduced to mincemeat as Megumi was ejected from the abyss. Returning to the real world, he turned around and found Asahi's body once again. "I'm sorry, Tokahoshi Asahi, I was not strong enough to save you. But you will not be forgotten and your death will not be in vain." Megumi picked up the fallen sorcerer's body and walked out of the building, any curses within gone and dead. For good this time. The next day, Megumi was staring at a card that was laying on the table in front of him. He had a dead expression on his face. The card was a sorcerer ID, his new one. After Akari made her report, it seems like Jujutsu headquarters worked fast. On the ID it had his name and picture with some of his details. With big bold letters it said Grade 2 Sorcerer. His survival and exorcising of the Grade 1 cursed womb had jumped him from a Grade 3 Sorcerer and straight to a Grade 2. He heard someone talking, but between his inner thoughts and brooding, he could barely hear them. "Gumi. Megumi." A pair of hands slammed down at the table in front of him, causing him to jump. He looked up to see Tsumiki, who looked at him with concern in her eyes. "Megumi, please talk to me. I'm worried. Sick, okay?" Megumi looked her in the eyes and deflected. "I'm fine, Tsumiki, I'm just tired." "No, you're not. Listen, they told me what happened there. It wasn't your fault, okay? No one could have predicted that there was a cursed womb, and even then, you're still alive and you managed to take it out. A first-grade curse." Tsumiki tried to cheer him up by mentioning his accomplishment. This worked for a moment as he allowed himself to be happy for a moment before the face of Asahi came to his mind. The blood flowing down his mouth, his flames sputtering out, his body going limp, and then his final words. "Oh. Guess this is it. Hope you live, Fushiguro-kun." It haunted him. A soft pair of hands held him by his chin and lifted his head, forcing him to look into the eyes of their owner. Tsumiki looked into his eyes for a moment before her mouth shifted into a breathtakingly warm smile. "Tell me, what's on your mind?" "NYX is gone." "Yeah, he is. But it is the burden of the living to keep going after losing their loved ones. NYX is gone, yes, but it is now your burden to keep going on. It's what he would have wanted."
Okay.
The hands then pulled him to a tight hug. It was warm, and within it all the worries of his life seemed to just fade away. The two of them stayed in that pose for a while, neither saying anything, yet it was as if too many words were told. They fell asleep on the couch, cuddled up together, as within that warm room, all the troubles of the world faded away. A few minutes later a bright flash of blue appears within the room, though Megumi and Tsumiki were oblivious. The flash faded away, revealing Gojo, who was about to say something but then saw the two siblings cuddling on the couch. A warm and honest smile appeared on the older man's face as he took a blanket and covered the two with it, and he then teleported away.
So you lost a teammate, huh?
It's unfortunate, but there was nothing you could have done, Kusakabe stated as he was sharpening his blade. They were in the middle of a lesson in maintaining your blade.
But I was there. I could have done something.
I could have saved him. Megumi was downcast at what he perceived as his own failure.
No, you could not. Look at me, Megumi.
If he died, then it was his mistake. You should not be at fault for someone else's sloppiness.
From what you told me, he left the cursed womb still alive when he turned to you.
The gruff man questioned. Megumi simply nodded in response, which caused the older man to grunt as he dipped his blade into some water and took it back to the grinding stone. Then he was completely at fault, and before you say anything. Yes, he was the more experienced sorcerer. And it's Sorcery 101, you never turn your back on a curse unless you are sure they are dead. Kusakabe then recalled a mission that he carried out back in his youth. Lost a partner too one time, to the same mistake no less. Poor bastard assumed the curse was dead after he cut off its legs. Just for it to turn around and cover him head to toe in acid, he died in seconds. Megumi seemed a bit disturbed at that story. My main point being, it ain't your fault, kid. He made a mistake and died. You just have to make sure you don't make the same mistake and carry on with your life. Be better, be wiser, be more willful than you were yesterday. That's all any of us can do. So, tell me, what happened in that building? Why are you asking me? Didn't they give you a report? Megumi was slightly tense and defensive. Well, yeah, Tilda, they did. But I want to hear it from you. The white-haired man exclaimed theatrically. Fine. Megumi went on to explain what happened during the mission, from taking out dozens of 4th grade curses, half a dozen grade 3 curses, a grade 2, and finally beating a 1st grade cursed womb by dragging it within his abyss and ripping it to shreds within it by employing divine dog totality. Ah, I see, impressive. You took out the cursed womb and figured out how to employ your inventory into attacks. That's pretty impressive. Must be why the Jujutsu headquarters wouldn't shut up about you on my phone. Satoru mused. Did they now? Yeah. They were all like, he has to report to us right now. And when will he be ready to go on another mission? I just told them to get lost, and if they try to get in touch with you, I'll nuke the nearest Jujutsu tech building. The white-haired man laughed out. The younger boy grew a smile on his face before muttering out, "Thanks, Satoru." You're welcome. They sat in a comfortable silence for a moment before Gojo spoke up. Do you want to talk about it? Sure. They sat in silence for a moment before something nudged Megumi's hands. Turning to it, he found it to be Blizzard. He quietly pet the now lone dog, who then shuffled closer, placing his large head within the boy's lap. Yeah, I miss him too, boy. Blizzard whimpered in his lap for a moment before drifting off to sleep. It's just, in that moment, against the cursed womb. After it got Asahi, it was all so sudden. I froze up. And NYX saved me. I'm not going to lie to you and say that it was fine for you to freeze up, but in the end it doesn't matter. The world of sorcery doesn't wait for anyone. You need to be better, stronger and faster. You froze up now, so the next time something like this happens, you need to react faster and faster. Gojo explained. You lost a teammate. It's unfortunate, but it's the true reality of our world. The weak are left behind as the strong lead the way. Gojo looked into Megumi's eyes before uttering words that shook him to his core. A man that used to be my best friend once told me it is the burden of the strong to carry the weight of the weak on our shoulders as they cannot do the same for themselves. It is your burden as well, Megumi. You might have failed today, but next time you need to be so much stronger that the curses hide and pretend to be dead in your presence. Gojo declared. Megumi's eyes shook for a moment as the reality of those words sunk in, then his eyes steeled themselves. His cursed energy surged in response to his will. Yes, you're right. I need to be stronger so that this never happens again. A few days later, at 6 p.m., Megumi was swinging Kage at the air. Sweat could be seen dripping down his face. His hands had calloused severely from holding the grip so hard for so long. Drops of blood could be seen building up within his grip. His blade was glowing with a supernatural light. His cursed energy had completely covered the blade as it burned a deep black. His grunts of excursion turned into grunts of pain until he couldn't hold the blade anymore. It slipped from his hands as he fell to his knees in exhaustion. The blood that was once squeezed within his grip now flowed freely, staining his hands and the ground beneath him a deep crimson. Damn it! I can't stop yet. Megumi pulled himself to his feet with shaking knees and started walking towards a nearby fallen tree and sat on it. He then looked towards the sky to witness the setting sun. Looking at the tree trunk on the side, you would see that it had been cleanly sliced in half, that being the reason why it fell in the first place. I was wondering what that noise was. It was you, Megumi. The boy looked down to see Shoko walking up to him. She was smoking a cigarette. She was sporting a white lab coat over a blue turtleneck sweatshirt and darker navy blue pants that reached just above her ankle. She finished her outfit with cream-colored high-heeled shoes. Her hair was also much longer than before and the lines under eyes seemed to convey that she had not had enough sleep. The older woman looked him up and down before she said, "Damn, you look like you've had just as much sleep as me. Are you doing okay, kiddo?" "I'm fine, but why are you here? Shouldn't you be at med school right now?" Megumi deflected. "I'm on break right now. I heard what happened from Satoru, so I came here to check on you." She held his bleeding hands with her own and channeled her reverse curse technique through them. The flow of positive energy flowing through his hands began as his pain and exhaustion began to also fade away. "Thanks," Megumi muttered as he took back his hands and rubbed them, immersing himself in the warm feeling of the positive energy. "Hey, Megumi. Take this." He saw a hand reach out to him with a lit cigarette between two fingers. Shoko had taken her own and passed it to him. "Really?" Megumi asked incredulously. "Really? Life is short and it's a bitch. We're Jujutsu sorcerers. No point in trying to act human. If you can battle with monsters beyond human comprehension, you can smoke a little before you're 18. Okay then." The raven-haired boy grabbed the cigarette and started smoking it, coughing for a bit but quickly getting used to it. Shoko simply sat next to him, then took out another one for herself and joined him. Tension slowly left Megumi's body as he relaxed in a quiet silence with Shoko, simply enjoying the sunset and their shared company. "You want to talk about it?" "No, not really." "K." Megumi finished his cigarette as he threw it to the ground and stomped on it. They spent some more time in a comfortable silence. "You got another one. What happened to being too young?" The younger boy grunted and recalled, "No point in trying to act human, right?" Shoko snorted before she took out another one and lit it before she gave it to him. "Thanks." "No problem. You sure you want to stay for this, Shoko?" Megumi asked as he brought his hand up in a pose. "Well, I'm curious on how your subjugation ritual works, Megumi. Besides, I have full confidence that you'll take it out easily," Shoko said as she leaned on a nearby boulder that had been cut down to size by Megumi earlier. On top of the same boulder was new, ready to take off to the skies and provide support to any combatants. Gamma was on top of a nearby tree, hiding in wait with some sharpened branches that were pre-made at the ready to attack the next Shikigami. Blizzard was on his lonesome, sitting in attention at his master's side. "If you say so. This universe might not be the same as the original one. I tried to summon round deer a few days ago to rush getting RCT since it would have saved Asahi. But it didn't work, the summoning ritual failed. Megumi thought as he remembered his repeated attempts to summon round deer. Looks like whatever sent me here doesn't want me to take any shortcuts. I have to get through and subjugate all my Shikigami in order. Max elephant, then rabbit escape, after that piercing ox and round deer. Then tiger funeral, and finally the biggest headache, divine general Mahoraga. Megumi shook his head to dispel those thoughts and laid one hand on top of the other and adjusted his fingers to create a shadow puppet of an elephant head. Max elephant. His shadows morphed and exploded in size. It shifted ahead of him and grew even further in size. Then the shadows exploded, revealing a gigantic beast. Max elephant is a huge pink elephant with black markings on its forehead, the top of its head, its back, and its knees. It had long sharp tusks that were ready to impale any reckless opponent, and its trunk had water dripping out of it. The elephant let out a large trumpeting sound to announce its arrival, before looking directly at its summoner, Megumi, and charging with its tusks pointed at him. The boy readied Koge and jumped to the side, allowing the charging beast to just miss him by an inch. Gamma, not allowing this overreach pass him by without punishing it, grabbed a spear and threw it at the elephant with blinding speeds. The spear that was preloaded with Megumi's cursed energy pierced deep within the beast's hide, wounding it but not enough to do any lasting damage. The elephant was angered and turned around, before coiling its trunk for a moment and then letting loose a veritable tide of water that threatened to wash away a chunk of the forest. The attack was aimed at Megumi, who was still the closest and had Blizzard with him to boot. However, New did not stand by as he dived towards his master and grabbed him by his shoulders and lifted him away and over the tide. Blizzard, not needing to be ordered, jumped away onto a tree branch for a moment before jumping from it over the wave, causing the branch to break from the force. The elephant, not wanting to give its opponent a moment of rest, charged forward again towards the toad, knowing that he was the only one within range at the moment and was the only one to damage her. But before it could reach, Megumi dropped on top of it with his blade glowing a vibrant shadowy black with added sparks of electricity flowing through it with the help of New, and stabbed right into the top of its front shoulder. The elephant cried out in immense pain, as with Megumi's level of cursed energy reinforcement, electric burst damage from New, momentum and his physical strength, the blade bit deep within its body as its hilt touched the hide of the beast. The beast was brought to its knees as the damage done by that attack was critical, almost crippling it entirely with a single well-placed blow. Taking advantage of his opponent's moment of weakness, he flipped a finger of his from its place pointed towards the elephant and pulled it upwards. Beneath the beast an abyss opened as from within it, the great serpent lashed out and bit deep into its victim's body. Its venom flowed rampantly around as he pulled the beast down and slammed it into the ground. Choosing to go overkill and confirm the kill, as his master pointed out that you should never assume an opponent is dead and make sure, he channeled cursed energy into his technique and called out his newest gained ability. Divine Dog, Totality. I can't keep Totality up for as long as I want like I can keep my normal Shikigami up. I'm not as used to the drain and the technique yet, but eventually I should be able to sustain it for as long as I wish. Blizzard, who was already running towards the action, spontaneously grew in size and morphed into a bicoloured bipedal wolf that jumped from his location and landed on top of the elephant's head, smashing it into the ground before jumping off, grabbing the beast's head with its two hands and pulling back, struggling for a moment before the head was ripped from the victim's shoulders. The elephant went limp for a moment and then started to fade away into dust, dropping Megumi, who was on top of it, to the ground. Claps rang out in the forest as he turned around and saw Shoko clapping for him. Good work, Megumi, that was almost scarily efficient. You and those Shikigami of yours are a real unit. Shoko almost had a wistful look on her face, seeming almost nostalgic. Thanks, Megumi said as he wiped blood from his blade and then stored it back within his shadow in its sheath. Welp, I gotta go now. It's getting pretty late and I need some sleep, Shoko said as she put out a cigarette by stepping on it. She came up to him and pulled out a new cigarette box before handing it to him. Here, take this. If you ever feel stressed and need to take the edge off, there's no harm in doing so. Thanks, Shoko, it's appreciated. Megumi put the box away into his shadow for later use. Bye, Gumi. Talk later, the brown-haired smoker said as she walked away. He watched her walk away for a moment before he walked towards a large tree and sat down cross-legged and started to meditate. He focused within his technique into the very essence of his Shikigami and into the inner workings of how totality functioned. The ability to infuse the essence and power of another Shikigami, another being into another perfectly, was something completely unheard of outside the 10 Shadows technique, and for the past few days he's been trying his best to understand how it works. After a few hours, it became night and he could barely see. He had long unsummoned all his Shikigami except Blizzard, who he removed totality from as it was draining. He was about to give up until it finally clicked. The combined effort of channeling how totality felt to use his talent and experience with his technique over the past few years and using a previous example as a framework, he finally grasped the way to a new application for his 10 shadows. This is all thanks to you, you king of conveniences. Without you using the 10 shadows to its fullest extent, I would never have even thought of this. Incarnation, Divine Dog. Using what he remembered of Sukuna using the abilities of Mahoraga and Max Elephant without the need to manifest the Shikigami as inspiration, and through his hard work, he finally managed to unlock a new facet of the 10 shadows that was never before seen. On the top of Megumi's head, his hair shifted and moved a bit before 2 black wolf ears popped up, his teeth became sharper, his body grew more muscle as his eyes changed and shifted. Suddenly he could hear all the sounds of every animal and creature within a mile, his sense of smell becoming hundreds of times stronger, as when before he couldn't smell anything interesting, his nose had picked up the scent of Shoko's perfume and could now instinctively tell which way she went purely from smell alone, and finally where before he could hardly see anything, his new eyes picked up on every movement as he could almost see as well in the dark as he could in light. It worked! This'll be very helpful in fights and any other situation that might need some extra utility. Although I can't channel totality into Blizzard right now, so this technique is probably utilizing NYX's essence to incarnate his abilities and form into myself. He got up from his place and started looking around the world with a brand new perspective. Blizzard didn't seem to understand how his master grew ears like his, but he could sense that his brother's essence flowed through his master as it once did through himself, which alone made him very excited. Megumi then deactivated incarnation, his new ears and minor transformations shifting away. Let's try this now. The former wolf boy closed his eyes. Incarnation, new. His back started to shift and morph for a moment before a pair of large orange wings erupted from his back, completely ripping his shirt apart. However, Megumi could hardly bring himself to care. Haha, it worked. Megumi then looked down at Blizzard's excited face before asking him, "Do ya wanna fly, boy?" All he got in response were excited noises. Okay. Megumi grabbed the dog, who had shifted to be much smaller at his whim so he could be grabbed and be held within his hands easily, and flapped his wings. Once, then twice, then countless times as he took off to the skies with his loyal hound in hand while laughing his heart out. Ha ha ha. Let's freaking go. A few months later. July 2013. There's no way. You have to show me. Tsumiki was pestering Megumi to show her his new ability. Fine, but only for a little while. I'm not that efficient at it yet and it's pretty draining, so I want to save it for later when I start actually training with it. Megumi acquiesced to her request, albeit somewhat unwillingly. Yes. Now show me. Tsumiki jumped up and down in excitement. All right, calm down. But I'm showing you new, not divine dog. Tsumiki seemed slightly disappointed at that, but she agreed, happy that she got what she wanted. The raven-haired boy closed his eyes in focus before bringing his hands up in the pose for summoning new. He then called out the technique's name. Incarnation, new. His back shifted and morphed as his shirt began to expand, and then it exploded outwards as 2 large orange wings sprouted from his back. His eyes had also shifted and became more orange as well. His vision improved drastically as cursed energy seemed to gather around it, making them more resistant to irritants. Damn it. I forgot to take off my shirt again, this sucks, that was my favorite one. Megumi seemed quite annoyed at his mistake. His sister, on the other hand, was a completely different case. She had stars in her eyes. That's so cool. She ran up to him and started inspecting his newly grown wings, first simply touching them, but before long she ran her hands through them. Hey, gentler there, I'm still getting used to the feeling of having new limbs, so they're still pretty sensitive right now. Megumi exclaimed with some heat on his cheeks. Guess the process of incarnation was more biological than I thought before. If it worked by just manifesting the limb built with shadows, then it wouldn't be sensitive as it is now. What was it that Suguna said when he saw Yuji's shrine? The display and workings of a cursed technique depends on the interpretation of the user and the time period. He considered with a thoughtful expression. Maybe this is why I can't summon out of order? Perhaps my interpretation and use of the technique made it evolve or display itself in a way that's different than before. My Shikigami do have way more independent thought than in the OG as far as I can remember, so perhaps that is part of the changes that passively occurred to the 10 shadows under my use. Sorry, it's just that they're so soft. Wait. Can you actually fly with them whenever? Can you take me flying with them? Tsumiki almost begged the younger boy to take her flying. Fine, fine. Let's go outside first. The older girl jumped from her place and ran outside, her brother not as enthused as her, simply walked out behind her. Tsumiki looked at him with a grin and held her hands out. The boy, who had recently had a growth spurt and became a few inches taller than her and had some toned muscles showing along his arm, simply sighed and then reached his hands out. Instead of grabbing her by under her shoulders, he grabbed behind her knees and her neck and lifted her into a bridal carry. Hey, what a why! Megumi grinned, and then his wings flapped with great strength, sending the both of them into the air with great speed. The winged boy laughed out as his sister was screaming out in fear and surprise, her face buried in his chest. They flew up higher and higher as meters became kilometers, until they pierced the heavens above and reached just above the clouds. When Megumi stopped, they were about 4 kilometers in the sky. Tsumiki took a moment to breathe for a moment, before she gathered the courage to look up. She lost her breath right after. The view in front of her took all the words from her. She couldn't even begin to describe it. Megumi grinned. Beautiful, isn't it? It's breathtaking? The raven-haired boy quipped. Yed hey. That's so lame. Tsumiki giggled and hit him on his chest lightly. Made you laugh, doesn't that make you lame? Oh, shush you. They looked back towards the infinite horizon for a few moments before Tsumiki spoke up. I wish the others could see this. How would Satoru and Shoko react? Well, Satoru would probably be able to fly this high up by himself. I'm not so sure Shoko would really care though. She doesn't seem like the type. Megumi mused. Oh yeah. I totally forgot, but Shoko graduated the other day, right? Let's go check Jujutsu Tech. She said she'd start working there when she graduated. Let's go say hi and congratulate her. You just wanted to fly more, didn't you? Megumi looked at her with a deadpan gaze. Tsumiki just glared back at him, as if daring him to challenge her. He sighed before acquiescing to her request. All right. He gripped her tighter and ordered her to hold on. She held on with all her might in fear, before he dove down from the skies at blinding speeds. He was unbothered by the wind hitting his face and eyes thanks to the mutations provided by the incarnation. Cursed energy gathered around his eyes and protected them, causing his normally green eyes to burn an incandescent orange. They flew along the city just above the skyline, above all the normal citizens of Tokyo, as within mere moments they entered the barriers surrounding Jujutsu Tech. Megumi then slowed himself down and with a flap of his wings they landed down in front of the main building of the school. He then let Tsumiki down while she gripped his arms for a moment before she sat down on the ground to take in some breaths. Was it fun at least? Megumi snarked at her while she was panting, his wings shuddering for a moment before they exploded into shadows and feathers. She looked up at him furiously for a moment before calming down, realizing that she did kinda ask for this. Shut it, let's go. They walked side by side to the medical ward where they assumed Shoko would be. As they were walking through the halls of the building, they ran into another duo, an old man with a good and a young black-haired girl around Tsumiki's age. "Ah, Megumi Zenin, what a coincidence to meet you here. How have you been? I've heard nothing but great things about you. Becoming a second-grade sorcerer already is exactly what I expected from you." The old man was no Obito Zenin, the head of the Zenin clan, and he was grinning with an air of satisfaction. Megumi grimaced for a moment before stealing his expression and replying, "You're too kind, Zenin-san, but really this is just because I've been blessed and am taking full advantage of that." He stepped forward closer to the man while subtly hiding Tsumiki behind his now larger body and making sure to hide his back so as to not reveal the holes in them and hint at his new ability or expose it. Note to self: get some clothes that adapt to incarnation so I don't ruin all my clothes. I'd really rather the Zenin clan doesn't know about them till I'm strong enough to at least match a first grade in a one-on-one fight. Noabito took notice of his move and decided to let it slide as he wanted to curry favor with the young prodigy. He took a deep gulp of his gorge before he spoke up again. "You're too humble, Megumi. As a Zenin and the 10 Shadows user, you should really be more assertive." Megumi recognized the girl beside him and looked her up and down before looking her in the eyes, the girl looking at him right back with an impassive tone, although it had an undertone of envy. The older man picked up on this as he brought his hand up to gesture at the girl. "Oh, how rude of me. This is your cousin Zenin Moki. I brought her along as we had some matters to attend to with the principal." Moki is a young woman with a tall athletic build. She has small golden eyes and long black hair tied into a short ponytail. She had fringes of hair over her forehead with smaller strands framing her cheeks and glasses. She wore a traditional outfit, a white yukata, and a black hakama as her impassive expression turned into a small grimace. Moki then bowed to Megumi, hiding her deepening grimace, and greeted him with a reserved tone. "It is an honor to meet you, Zenin-san. I've heard much about you from Zenin-sama." As she stood back up straight, her expression went from a grimace to deep shock as she witnessed a scene that she almost couldn't believe. Megumi had bowed back to her and looked her in the eyes before greeting her back. "The honor is all mine, Moki-san, but please call me Megumi. We're cousins after all, aren't we?" He made sure to emphasize the use of her given name, knowing exactly how she felt about their shared name. He then surprised her even further as he gestured to his back and introduced his sister. "This is my older sister Tsumiki," who just smiled warmly as she knew of the Zenin clan's values. Noabito's expression slightly twisted before he called out to them and started to walk away. "It was good meeting you, Megumi. Come, Moki, I have much to do." Moki looked at Megumi one last time before she hurried after the older man. As she passed by him, Megumi whispered to her a few cryptic words. "No bird stays caged forever." The brother and sister then walked off, letting Moki stir in her thoughts as she walked behind Noabito. In her stupor, she didn't notice that she walked closer to him than before, from 3 steps to 2 steps. "Oh, hey, you two. Came all the way here for me, did you?" Shoko looked up from a notebook and greeted the two of them. Tsumiki spoke up first and congratulated her cheerfully. "Yeah. Congrats, Shoko, you finally did it. What's next for you? Are you just gonna work with Jujutsu Tech?" "MHM, that's right. You wouldn't believe how much they pay me here. Guess having an RCT user on their payroll is important to them after all." She smirked and pulled out a smoke. She then patted her lab coat trying to find a lighter. "Here." Megumi reached into his shadow and pulled out a lighter. Shoko just smiled a bit before thanking him as he lit her cigarette. Tsumiki seemed confused and a bit suspicious. "Hey. Why do you have a lighter in your shadow? You never know when you might need one. Besides, you'd be surprised with how many things I keep in there." He demonstrated this by putting his hand under his shirt and pulled out a charger. "Oh, okay, he reached in again and pulled out a towel. "Why do you He reached in again and pulled out a pillow, which Shoko took and placed on her chair and laid back to witness the two siblings' tomfoolery. Reaching in again, he pulled out a pair of shoes. Wait. Are those my dash? Once again he reached in and pulled out a new shirt, taking his current one off, revealing his slightly toned body and putting on the new one. Why do you? Wait, that's pretty smart. Megumi then reached directly into his shadow, which started to expand and grabbed onto something. His arms strained slightly as he pulled out a twin bed. Okay, that's it. Why do you have a freaking bed in your shadow? Tsumaki shouted out incredulously as she pointed at him, while Shoko just snickered at their antics. You never know when you might need one. Megumi replied simply. I walked into that one, I guess. Now that I think about it, how do you have a bed in your shadow? Don't you have to bear the weight of whatever is in it? She asked, confused. A simple application of low-level cursed energy reinforcement. I do that till I get used to the weight of everything and let my body deal with it alone for a while. Till I get used to that too, then I just up the weight by adding heavier stuff into my shadow. It's really good training. I passively build muscle and get good at using cursed energy reinforcement while doing basic everyday things. He rolled his neck as he explained. Tsumaki just hummed along, taking it at face value, but Shoko, as a doctor and a fellow sorcerer, was both impressed at his ingenious training plan and horrified at any potential side effects of such intensive and long-spanning stress to his entire body. You should probably come in for a checkup every now and then to make sure you don't do any permanent damage to your body, and don't overdo it. I should be able to heal mostly anything, but you don't want to test that theory. Megumi just nodded to that. Later that night, in a clearing of a forest. Well, it's about time I get the next Shikigami. It shouldn't be too hard if all goes according to plan. Megumi could be seen wearing a white and black hori over his normal casual clothes. He brought his hands up and slid one over the other while crossing some fingers, creating the symbol of Max Elephant. Shortly after that, his shadow exploded in size as beside him it formed a boulder of cursed energy and shadows that revealed the titular Shikigami, which was bigger than when it was summoned for subjugation, going from 2.8 meters tall to over 3.4 meters tall. Shifting his hands into a more familiar hand sign, he made the sign for new as the creature flew out of his shadow and rested atop a nearby boulder, ready for any commands. Megumi looked around and then at the beautiful moonlight and then shrugged and readied himself to summon the next Shikigami, his hands coming together connected by his fingers while facing opposite directions, forming a shadow puppet of a rabbit. Rabbit escape! Ahead of him, his shadow extended ahead of him as from within it hopped a single rabbit. It was pure white with red eyes and had its Shikigami sign on its belly. It had a long shape with 3 spheres connected to the top of it and a cross in the middle. The rabbit looked at him, seeming slightly afraid before shadows covered it for a moment and it split into 2, then 4, then 8, then 16. It kept multiplying as soon enough it would grow into a tidal wave. If one paid close attention you could see the original Shikigami try to run away and let its doubles overwhelm the summoner. Megumi noticed this as he kept track of the original and just smirked before bringing his hands together one final time, this time into a less familiar pose with his hands creating a ball shape, and started chanting. Mastered barrier technique, hollow cage. Almost instantly a cage of shadows and steel formed around them, trapping the summoned Shikigami and leaving it unable to escape. Took a while and some practice, but I've mastered it. Now the barrier should be just as strong inside as it is outside. Not the most useful technique, but it will come in clutch sometimes. One of the doubles didn't seem to care as it was already running ahead to the summoner, hopping atop its brothers and sisters and immediately throwing a kick towards its enemy. Not allowing it to hit, Megumi simply weaved to the side, dodging the attack and then elbowing it, causing it to explode into shadows. He then looked towards the rest of the tidal wave and then pointed towards them and ordered his newest Shikigami to attack. Max Elephant, flood them and force them to a corner. Not needing to be told twice, the Shikigami did so as its cheeks bulged out for a moment before it shot out a tidal wave over water, flooding the barrier space. New, just as we practiced. New followed its master's order and flew over to Max Elephant and landed on its head and flapped its wings as electricity formed around its wings, before it flapped its wings forwards towards the trunk of Max Elephant as the electricity coalesced and seeped into the tidal wave flowing from the Shikigami and hit the concentrated rabbit doubles.
Combined move, Electro-Tidal Surge. The attack was super effective as the rabbits on the other end of it were all overwhelmed by the tidal wave of water and then were electrocuted severely by the attack as the water conducted the electricity, allowing it to reach each and every double, including the original. Within mere moments, all the Shikigami were reduced to dust and shadows as the subjugation ritual came to an end. January 2014. Blizzard, catch. Megumi threw a great sword towards Blizzard, who caught it with his mouth and swung it, severing the head of a curse. Said curse was a second-grade curse that was part of an infestation that Megumi was sent to clear. Megumi himself had manifested the new incarnation and had just speared a curse with one of his wings that was enhanced with cursed energy. Normally it would be impossible to do so as the wing wouldn't be sharp or strong enough to pierce a curse directly. But with an improvised application of the swordsmanship learned from Kusakabe, he had managed to form a sort of armor made of cursed energy, using his teachings and practice from his master and his wings as guidance for the cursed energy. He had succeeded. With a flick of his wing he had then sent the curse flying towards another in a burst of electricity, taking both curses out of the fight. He had turned around to Gamma, who had ensnared 3 curses in his uncannily long tongue and thrown them into the air. Megumi readied himself and flapped his wings with great strength and called out to Blizzard, "Give it back!" The great sword was thrown back just in time for Megumi to reach a meter above the curses and catch it, flowing his electricity through it and swinging in a wide arc as he dove down, the swing slicing the curses in twain. Not wasting a moment, he used this momentum to drive his blade into a first-grade curse that was just tackled and thrown into the air by Max Elephant, impaling right through the curse as he kneeled on the ground to take a breath. A second-grade curse tried to attack him in his moment of weakness, but from his hari a single rabbit jumped out, which then turned into a wall that shielded him from attack. The curse widely slammed itself onto the regenerating wall in futility, but it had not paid attention to the elephant beside it, who just slammed it with its trunk, throwing it away before it sprayed a wave of water at it, knocking it and a few other curses prone. The wall of rabbits faded away to reveal Megumi, who was holding up his greatsword in front of him with both hands before flowing cursed energy through it. In response, the blade shone a brilliant blue that showed the magnificence of the stars as frost began building along its edge and icy mist flowed around it. Megumi pulled back the blade and seemingly swung it at nothing, yet from the brilliant shine of the greatsword a slash of icy energy flew out towards the curses and exploded on impact. The bitter frost of the blades instantly ends the life of the cursed spirits. He looked around for a few moments, still alert, before he released the breath he was holding and fell back on his knee, unsummoning his Shikigami, leaving Blizzard as a backup in case he missed a curse while scanning the building with his senses. "Ah, it's finally over. I swear there's been so many curses lately. Thankfully I asked Satoru for a cursed tool to add to my collection for missions. Didn't know he'd go all out with it and give me a special grade cursed weapon." He stood back up and brandished the greatsword and looked at it properly as the energy feeding it ceased, and its glow faded away, revealing the blade in all its glory. It was a brilliant deep blue and seemed to be made of pure ice. Its hilt was made of solid polished rock. Dark Moon Greatsword, eh? It is infused with a curse technique to boot, some kind of ice cursed technique. Satoru said it was made back in the Heian era and was claimed by the Gojo clan back in the Edo era. He placed the blade into his shadow and hissed as he grabbed his arm. It had been sliced by a cursed spirit early in the fight, and with the adrenaline fading away the pain was coming back to him. "Shit, that hurts. I should get to Shoko. She'll heal this quickly and I can make it to that sports festival that I promised Tsumaki I would go to. I got a cheer for her and her team in that sprinting competition. You should really be more careful, Gumi. Wasn't this just a normal mission with just some second-grade curses?" Shoko said as she was patching him up and wrapping a bandage around his arm, before she held it and started channeling her reverse cursed technique. The warm glow of her positive energy soothed his pain. He could almost feel his body mending together as his tissues connected back again. The energy then started flowing from his arm into the rest of his body as any bruises, cuts or fatigue simply faded away. "You'd think so, wouldn't why? It had 2 grade 1 curses. One of them caught me off guard. It's how I cut my arm in the first place, besides that there were almost a dozen second grade curses."
They keep messing up the classification of missions and curses," Megumi said as he rolled his shoulder to try and get his blood moving into the arm faster and loosen it up. "That's what I'm hearing from almost every sorcerer that comes around here. Seriously, they better get their shit together because this is getting insane," Shoko revealed as she sat in her chair and leaned back as she sighed. Megumi was about to reply before the door of the infirmary flew open, revealing Gojo Satoru wearing his sunglasses indoors. "Megumi, I just came back from saving a couple of kids from a weird-ass curse that wanted to be their mother or something. How have you been? I hear you messed up and got hurt against some weak second-grade curses tilde," Gojo exclaimed as he made his appearance. The raven-haired boy growled in annoyance as he turned around to the taller man and shouted back at him. "Well, easy for you to say, you goddamned hack. You were born overpowered. I have to work for it. Besides, not all of us just have the 6 eyes to be able to notice when a first-grade curse is sneaking up on themselves by hiding between 3 second-grade curses and jumping me." Megumi was fuming in anger and frustration, not only on Gojo but most on himself, as he held himself to a higher standard and would not allow himself to fall behind and stay weak. "TCH, I need to learn reversed cursed technique as soon as possible. I can't just rely on Shoko every time I mess up and get myself hurt." There was silence for a moment before Gojo spoke up. "Well, I taught you how the reverse cursed technique works, didn't I? You just need to get good and do it." "Explained it?" "You didn't explain anything. It doesn't make sense." Megumi was a bit but hurt over his inability to master and figure out how to use RCT. "Oh, you explained it to him, did you? How'd you do that? No one ever understands it when you try to." Shoko was interested in how he would describe it to his student. "Eh? Okay then, so the reverse cursed technique heals wounds and regenerates flesh by transforming negative energy into positive energy. Cursed energy is not suitable for healing living things because it originates from negative emotions. While reversal works on the idea of multiplying a negative by another negative to make a positive, Lapse utilizes cursed energy to create techniques. Unlike cursed energy, which is centered in the stomach, this reversed process is controlled by the brain." Gojo snapped his fingers and a whiteboard that already had some explanations regarding reverse cursed technique, no doubt being the same one that he used prior to try and explain it to Megumi. Most users of the reverse cursed technique are limited to self-healing. While self-healing is more effective than mending others, producing positive energy is an even more uncommon skill. The basic distinction in application is one of the causes. Another is that the treatment may be rejected by the recipient's body since it is incompatible with their cursed energy. The recipient may not respond to conversion, or they may reject the healer's tainted energy. As such, the efficacy of using the reversed cursed procedure to heal others varies from situation to instance. He then pointed at Shoko and declared, "Unless you're Shoko, that is, who can use RCT on others more effectively than others can on themselves, she's just special like that." To which she just smirked smugly. He then went on to conclude by flipping the board to reveal 2 giant equations he had written prior. If negative x negative equals positive, then cursed energy, x cursed energy, equals positive energy, plus, and that's basically how RCT works. Gojo declared, seeming very proud of himself. Shoko was much less impressed, simply commenting while resting her head on her hand, "Wow, that's a shit explanation." The comment had instantly taken the winds out of the white-haired man's sails, making him deflate. "Well, it's not completely bad as its core idea is correct, but the thing is you're overcomplicating it. RCT is a natural process that anyone with good cursed energy manipulation could conduct, but not everyone has the processing power to fuel such a mathematical way of producing it." She then demonstrated by closing her eyes and holding hands out. Each had an amount of brownish cursed energy, and then she brought them together. This caused the energy to flow into itself and combine, the glow of both sources of energy not smashing into each other but simply combining as if it was a natural occurrence, as the light brown color of her cursed energy reversed and became a dark blue. I don't expect you to understand it or be able to do it anytime soon, but keep it in mind and try to think it through. Don't force nature, simply allow it to take its course. she explained as she didn't forcefully stop her energy flow and simply allowed it to disperse around her, the brilliant aurora of mixed energy making her already gorgeous visage become almost unreal. Thanks Shoko, I'll keep it in mind. A few hours later. Saitama Urami East Junior High. The roar of the crowd was almost deafening. Megumi was slightly overwhelmed, but he was enjoying himself. Besides him was Blizzard, who he had kept summoned, although he had shrunk him to a size small enough to hold him in his arms. The change in size had not bothered the loyal hound in the slightest, as his tail was wagging fast enough to become a blur and make a slight wind blow into Megumi's hair. Although thankfully it seemed like nobody noticed his odd pose and swaying hair. The girls around him had awed looks on their faces with blushes on their faces as they were gossiping amongst each other. Megumi's growth spurt had continued as he became around 5 feet 5 inches tall. He had lost some of his baby fat around his face and grown some muscles that began to show through the shorts and t-shirt he was wearing. In short, he had become a middle school girl's dream boy, not that he noticed or cared for it, as his tastes were more mature because of his mental age. Did you have to bring Blizzard too? Everyone's looking at you, Megumi. Tsumiki complained with a pout as she walked to him. She was wearing a white t-shirt and shorts with an armband that had leader on it, as she was the leader of her team in the sprinting competition. The sounds of gossip increased as she talked to him. No doubt the rumors were growing by the second. Who's he? A secret boyfriend. He's so cute, it's no fair. He's so tall, and look at those muscles. Is he a high schooler? Tsumiki started blushing at the attention and gossip, especially the first one, before turning around to the onlookers and declaring, "He's my brother." Most of the gossiping stopped at that except one person from the crowd who whispered, "Oh, forbidden sibling love, how taboo." Tsumiki's blush turned to a glare as she scanned the crowd and growled out, "Which one of you weirdos said that?" No one said anything as they all looked at each other with faux suspicion. But before anything else could happen, an organizer declared the event was about to start, causing everyone else to disperse and leave to go to the stands. Megumi just laughed a little before urging Tsumiki to ignore it all and go do her best. "I guess you're right, wish me luck." She sighed and was about to walk off, but Blizzard all but jumped out of Megumi's arms and into Tsumiki's. She laughed a bit as he licked her face in excitement, his tail going from simply wagging into a helicopter wag as if he was trying to fly through it alone. "Even Blizzard believes in you, Tsumiki, you'll do great. I just know it," Megumi declared with a smile. She smiled back and jogged away to get ready and join her team. And so the event started. At first Tsumiki's team struggled, but when it came to her turn to run, she left all other contestants in the dust, perhaps a testament to her blood. It was a relaxing, fun day with many happy moments. Or at least, it should have been. Megumi felt an unusual amount of cursed energy appear within his detection range, 3 signatures in fact. 2 of them weren't of much concern, but the third one was. It was a huge concentration of energy. It felt as if it wasn't merely a singular signature, but as if countless others layered over each other around a blindingly bright purple core. The 2 smaller signatures came into sight first. They were from a pair of girls. One had long caramel hair tied back into a bun, and the other had short black hair set in a bob cut with a symmetrical fringe. The blonde one talked first. "Wow, there's a lot of monkeys around today, huh? This kid better be worth it, Geto-sama. Nanako, don't call them that while we're around them. What if they hear you?" The girl with black hair chastised what seemed to be her sister. "Eh? The monkeys have already left to go cheer for whatever event this is. There's nobody around," Mimiko argued back to her sister. Before they could continue bickering, the third signature arrived and sounded out. Now, Nanako, Mimiko, no need to worry about those filthy monkeys. We have better things to do," a tall man with long black hair told the 2. "Whatever you say, Geto-sama," the twin sisters said at the same time. Mimiko's brown eyes are framed by eyelashes, and her short black hair is styled in a bob cut with a symmetrical fringe above them. She is dressed in a black sailor outfit with a light-colored scarf, black shoes, black knee-high socks, and a black skirt that falls past her knees. She also has a doll with a rope around its neck and numerous sutures.
Nanako has her twin sister's brown eyes and has long caramel hair that she twists back into a bun. She's dressed in an indigo mid-thigh-length skirt and a beige cardigan over a white button-down shirt. She also has on brown loafers and a pair of baggy white socks. Megumi's eyes narrowed as he looked the trio up and down. Blizzard, who was in a smaller form, had jumped down from his arms and grew dramatically in size, reaching his full height, and growled in response to the danger he and his master sensed. "Geto Suguru, what brings you here?" Megumi finally said, breaking the silence. "Ah, so you already know who I am then? Good, that saves us some time." The older man just smiled wide in response to his layered hostility and reserved posture. Suguru is a tall, slim, and muscular man with long black hair that falls down his back and is only partially tied up in a man bun. His black eyes are narrow, and his bangs sometimes hide his left eye. His earlobes are big enough to fit somewhat bulky circular earrings. He wears black yukata robes over a gold-colored Kia outfit. His Zri sandals and white tabi socks complete his monk outfit. "Saves you time for what exactly?" Megumi said as he readied himself to summon his shikigami or draw a weapon from his shadows. "No need for any of that, Megumi-kun. We aren't here today to hurt anyone. We're just here so I can have a chat with you." Geto tried to disarm the situation. He went on to explain, "Have you ever questioned the current state of the world? Whereas great Jujutsu sorcerers must work in secret in order to protect commonplace society. Great power must be used for great ends after all." His expression then twisted as he declared, "It's a nonsensical paradox. Why must it be the burden of the strong to care for the weak? The apex of creation is forced to halt its own path of evolution. It is utterly deplorable. It's high time we reconsider our plans for survival." Megumi's expression twisted as he realized where he was going with this and why he was here in the first place. "You're trying to recruit me into your crusade to create a perfect world of Jujutsu by killing all non-sorcerers, aren't you?" Geto's expression serene turned into a demented smile as he spread out his arms and let out a hearty laugh. "Yes, that's it exactly. Why should the strong bow before these filthy monkeys who can't even use Jujutsu? Well, unfortunately for you, it's impossible. Even if I were to join you, we couldn't hope to achieve your goals since Satoru would stop us effortlessly." The younger boy denied his ambitions. Yet his denial had the opposite effect as the curse user simply cackled in laughter in response. "You really don't know, do you? It's not your fault since you wouldn't have access to the statistics or have the same view I and the rest of the Jujutsu society do." Megumi grimaced, caught off guard by the man's jubilation. "What are you saying? In the last 10 years, the amount of casualties on sorcerers has more than tripled in Japan, with a lesser extent worldwide at only double. And the cursed spirit sightings have also increased by a similar amount, with their quality and quantity increasing tremendously." Geto explained, looking like he was enjoying himself. Sweat started to drip down Megumi's face as a horrifying thought came to mind that he wanted to refuse. Is there a rest stop between now and the point? He growled out, knowing yet denying the truth that he thought of. Geto grinned before declaring, "Since your birth, Fushiguro Megumi, the very balance of the world of Jujutsu has shifted towards the side of humanity, much like Satoru before you. That is why I know that if you join my cause it will go from a dream into possibility. Together we can create a paradise." As soon as those words hit Megumi, it felt as if the weight of the heavens fell down on his shoulders. All the signs that he overlooked and willfully ignored came back to him instantly. From the wildly inaccurate mission analysis, the overwhelming increase in cursed spirit activity, to the countless number of Jujutsu sorcerers that were injured and had to be healed by Shoko. "Oh. Guess this is it. Hope you live, Fushiguro-kun." To the death of Asahi Tokuhoshi during their mission, when the curse that they took out inexplicably became a cursed womb and evolved beyond what it should have. All these revelations flowing into his mind made his body feel as if it had been splashed with ice-cold sea water. "Megumi? I didn't see you in the crowd. Why are you still though?" Tsumiki walked to her brother, not noticing the trio facing him until it was too late. Megumi's body blurred as he all but sprinted from his place to stand in front of Tsumiki, his cursed energy firing up wildly, as his shadow burst up and exploded with all his tamed Shikigami being automatically summoned. Geto didn't react much to the display of hostility as his expression twisted from a grin to a reserved smile that hid barely restrained hatred. But alas, it seems your loyalties lie very clearly. Very well, I suppose it's time we make our exit. Geto said as uncannily as Megumi, a void opened up beside him and a tear in the fabric of space revealed a giant bird curse that walked out and opened its enormous beak. The three of them climbed into the curse's open beak, but before it closed, the older man turned around and looked Megumi in the eyes and spoke his final words. Farewell for now, Fushiguro Megumi, we shall meet again. And hopefully next time, you'll know to be on the right side with the rest of your race. With that the man left, leaving Megumi to stir in his revelations. Countless thoughts ran through his brain as he tried to think of something to say or do after everything, but all of his thoughts compiled into one word at the end. Shit. A few months later. July 2014. Tsumiki, I'm heading out on a mission. Megumi said as he was walking out of his room and entered the living room already putting on a jacket. Already? You already went out on a mission yesterday. Don't you think it's a bit much? His sister said as she paused her TV show, looking up at him. Yeah, but this one is an emergency. Looks like some village out in the sticks is overwhelmed with curses and the local sorcerers can't handle it alone, so they need me to go out and help them. Megumi replied as he put on his right shoe. Tsumiki didn't seem fully convinced. You don't have to go every time some sorcerer stubs his toe, you know. I know you feel responsible because of the balance shifting, but it isn't your burden to bear. I appreciate your worry, but it is. Megumi put on his other shoe and walked away, stopping at the front door. Bye. See you later tonight, okay? Tsumiki sighed before she relented. See you tonight. Try not to break a limb or two. No promises, he said as he walked off to the black car ready in front of their house, to which she just shook her head and turned her show back on. You took my brother, you filthy omen. I'm going to rip your horned head off and mount it on my wall. A tall red-haired woman in armor declared as she readied her blade. You can try, you rotted bitch, but Michaela is mine. A large man with horns all over his head, leaving only one eye left out, replied. He then took out a large spear with 3 points like a trident ready to fight. Tsumiki laughed out loud. Wow, I thought my family was broken. Who steals their underaged half-brother to fondle his hand? Megumi saw a familiar blonde-haired woman waiting for him in the car. Good evening, Akari-san. It seems you're my manager for today once again. Megumi greeted the window as he entered the car. Akari smiled and greeted him back. Yep, looks like we're gonna be working together for the foreseeable future. Well, good to have someone I know and can rely on, shall we? Megumi said while strapping on his seatbelt. Why yes, let's head out. The woman had a slight blush at the unexpected compliment and drove off to the mission's location. Megumi zoned out as he listened to the radio. The sights outside the window went from the metropolitan crawl of Tokyo, to the outskirts of town, to greenery of nature and soon enough to the mountains. The car stopped and they both stepped out, greenery and mountains as far as the eye can see. I hate leaving Tsumiki alone in the house, but there isn't much I can do about it. Kenjaku could strike at any time even while she was at school. All I can do is keep an eye on her when I can. I think I'll start leaving at least one Shikigami behind to protect her while I'm not around. They'll give me a warning if nothing else. Megumi thought as he got out of the car and looked around. Welcome to Mount Kumatori. Your mission today is to assist the local sorcerer in quelling a cult that's been discovered recently. Akari said as she pulled out a clipboard and started divulging some more information. As far as we know, they call themselves the Church of the Cursed Monarch. Apparently they plan on trying to summon a special curse soon. We don't know how they plan to do so, but no matter what, it cannot be good. Megumi hummed along and then asked, do we know where their headquarters is or do we have to find it? The local sorcerer has already located their hideout, so all you need to do is clear the cultists out together. We should be meeting with them here soon enough. She answered before she flipped the page and started writing something. That's so?
All right then, I should get ready then. The raven-haired boy said as he summoned Blizzard, the loyal hound jumping out of his shadow with a bark before stretching and sitting patiently awaiting instructions. After a few moments, Megumi sensed a sorcerer's signature approaching. It didn't seem all that strong, so he wasn't alerted much and just assumed it to be the sorcerer. This proved to be the right choice as a feminine voice sounded out from its direction. "Oh hey you two, you must be the help sent from headquarters, right Tilda?" Megumi turned to have a good look at the owner of said voice as before long a blush covered his face. "Nice to finally meet you too. My name is Izumi Hanako Tilda," she said before bowing with a flourish. "And nice to meet you too, Miss Hanako. My name is Megumi Fushiguro. I'll be in your care," Megumi said, struggling to keep a stutter out of his voice and hide his blush by bowing as well. "Miss? But I'm a boy." "You're funny, Fushiguro-kun." Tilda. Megumi straightened himself in pure horror as he took another look at her. She'd had long pink styled into a bob cut with a black bow tie and tied into a long braid that reached her lower back. She wore a traditional Miko outfit consisting of a white kosode and red umanori styled hakama pants and finished with traditional Japanese sandals. Holy shit, it's been so long since I saw him, I almost forgot the greatest trap known to humankind. "Is that a stall foe?" Megumi accidentally muttered out, loud enough for the boy to hear him. "Just met and already made up nicknames, Fushiguro-kun." Tilda. "How forward," Tilda Izumi said, already taking the chance to tease the boy. This gab caused Megumi's already burning face to turn into a bonfire as his face turned deep red. Thankfully for Megumi, before the teasing could continue, he was saved by Akari Fo coughing into her hand to attract their attention. "As entertaining as this is, we have a mission to take care of. Shall we, gentlemen?" the window said as she motioned. "I could kiss you, Akari-san." Megumi thought, thankful for the save. "All right, fine, Tilda. Ruin my fun." Izumi pouted before he started to lead the way towards the location of the cultist hideout. They walked through an oddly quiet village. Before long, they found themselves standing before a minka, a large traditional Japanese mansion. It had a large stone wall surrounding the compound, making it a perfect stronghold. Or it would be, had Megumi not had access to flight. He brought his hands together in the summoning sign for new and activated what is coming out to be his most useful ability as of yet, Incarnation. Incarnation, new. His orange wings sprouted once more, this time going through his clothes as he had acquired special sorcerer clothing that he had custom made for himself by the finest Gojo clan fabricators. It could adapt to the changes in his body and allow any incarnations to take place without breaking his clothing. In this case, his wings simply passed through his hakama as if there were holes in it to let them pass. This sudden change caused Akari's eyebrow to raise as she already heard of his ability but hasn't seen it in action before. Izumi, on the other hand, seemed to be in utter awe. "Wow, Tilda, these wings are so cute for Shiguro-kun," Izumi gushed, as he reached out slowly to pet them. "Thanks, Hanako-san. I think it'd be best if we just flew in and took them by surprise." The now winged boy deflected. "You, Hanako-san, that's too formal. Just call me Izumi." The titular sorcerer groaned out, seeming disgusted by the formality. "Only if you call me Megumi." He acquiesced with some heat on his cheeks. "Deal. If you two are done flirting, I'll set up the curtain and you two can start. I'll make sure no cultists escape," Akari commented with a deadpan expression. The two blushed slightly before Megumi spoke up. "All right, Izumi, as soon as Akari-san sets up the curtain, I'll grab you and fly us in." Restraining himself to not tease him any further, Izumi simply nodded seriously. "All right then, let us begin," the blonde-haired woman said as she brought her hand up with a finger twisted and started chanting. "Emerge from the darkness, blacker than darkness. Purify that which is impure." As the curtain fell down upon the compound, the window turned to the two sorcerers and said, "Godspeed, gentlemen." They nodded as Megumi grabbed Izumi and flapped his wings with great wings and flew up in a gust of wind. Entering the curtain, they had a bird's eye view and spotted some guards placed around the yard. They were centered around the main building and heavily guarded the main entrance. Now would be a good time to talk sorcery. Do you have a technique, Izumi? Megumi asked as he was scanning the enemy, looking for a weak point or anything interesting. I'm decent with a sword and can hold my own in a fight against anything up to a second-grade curse, but I also have a pretty good cursed technique. It's called rhythm enchantment. I can choose a target to empower and grant them absolute focus, kinda like forcing them into the zone. I have to channel it through dancing, but it's pretty strong if I can pull it off. Izumi explained, almost seeming like he was bragging at the end. Oh. That's pretty cool actually. Wait, are you related to Utaheim Iori by any chance? Megumi recalled the technique of the older sorcerer Solo Forbidden Area, which would boost a given target and allow them to have an increased cursed energy output as long as they were within her range. Oh, how do you know? She's actually my big cousin. Izumi was a bit impressed. It's nothing, just know her from a mutual friend. Let's begin, shall we? Megumi dismissed. Sure, let's go. He put his hands into his kosode and pulled out a pure black katana with pink flowers near the hilt. He dived down directly at a guard in the middle of a group, crushing him into the ground instantly, the shockwave of his landing sending the rest of the group flying away. Izumi jumped out of his arms and cut down a nearby guard who managed to avoid the impact. Megumi, not one to waste time, immediately started summoning his Shikigami one after another. And then they began their slaughter through the compound, crushing any cultists they found without hesitation. The cultists that were taken by surprise lost some of their numbers but recovered fast as a couple of curse users among them surfaced and started fighting back. None were all that strong, but their surprising numbers overwhelmed the pair of sorcerers. But with the help of his Shikigami, Megumi kept up with the tide of fodder, taking out his greatsword and channeling cursed energy through it to activate its ability and slicing the very air ahead of him, causing an aurora of energy to fly out of the blade and slash into the crowd. Frozen limbs flying out as it took out a couple of cultists, Blizzard following the icy blast as he shifted and morphed into his totality form with a shout from Megumi. He ran into the crowd and started ripping them apart. A ball of fire flying at him stole his attention from the fight ahead of him. He dodged barely as it singed his clothes. Looking towards the source, he saw a sorcerer with balls of fire within his hands and a crazed expression on his face and an odd tattoo on his forehead that he shared with all his comrades. We will not allow you to interrupt the descent of our monarch. May chaos take the world. The cultist exclaimed with a fanatical roar before throwing 2 more fireballs. To which Megumi responded by pointing his hands towards it and calling out to his Shikigami. Max Elephant, counter it! The elephant followed his orders as it fired out a wave of water towards the fireballs, which caused them to fizzle out into vapor. GRR, damn you! Charge, charge for the glory of our monarch! The sorcerer growled out in rage. His fellow cultists sprinted ahead with reckless abandon at his command, not caring for their lives in the slightest. Run them over! Megumi ordered as he turned around and cut down a cultist on his right with Koge, now dual-wielding his blades, the greatsword resting on his shoulder in his left hand and his katana in his right. The war elephant charged, running through the minions and tanking some fireballs to the head with some damage. As he reached the sorcerer, he fired a tidal wave of water at him point blank, sending him flying backwards, straight into the range of Gamma, who grabbed him and threw him back towards Megumi, who, without turning as he pulled out his blade from a dead cultist splattering some blood on his face, simply ordered Serpent, devour him. Behind him an abyss opened as the great serpent flew out, swallowing the sorcerer whole in a sickening crunch before returning to his shadow. Looking around him, he saw the numbers of the cultists had been culled into nothing. Turning towards Izumi, he saw him cut down the last of his enemies, having defeated a good amount of them single-handedly. Good, looks like we dealt with all of them inside. Let's head inside and finish this, shall we? Megumi called out his partner as he stored his greatsword in his shadow again and desummoned Gamma and Max Elephant to conserve energy. HM? Oh sure, let's go! Izumi said cheerfully as he wiped away some blood from his blade. The 2 sorcerers walked towards the main building, guards still up but assured that they had taken care of most of the cultists. The insides of the building were slightly unsettling. It had an air of normalcy, but any sorcerer would be able to sense the deeply ingrained cursed energy within each inch of the halls of the mansion. Before long they landed their eyes upon another trio of cultists, this time curse users from what their cursed energy reserves indicate. We will not allow you two to interfere with the ritual. This world is broken and needs to return to its true form. One of the cultists with blonde hair tied in a ponytail and a blindfold said as she pulled out a blade, coating it with cursed energy. Chaos shall take this wretched world and bring true unequivocal equality. An older man with graying hair said as he powered up his cursed technique, causing him to grow in size twice, his muscles bulging out unnaturally. The third cultist didn't say anything, instead opting to merely raise his hands as two steel balls floated around his head, ready to be thrown around. That is not up to you lunatics to decide. Blizzard, rip the swordswoman to shreds. Izumi, you take the mute with the floating balls. I got the old man. Megumi ordered as he readied himself to rush forward and slice the cultist to pieces. The loyal hound blurred ahead with the help of his dead sister's essence, fulfilling him through totality. The cultist clashed with the Shikigami, blade to claw, but before long the superior strength and agility of the beast overwhelmed her and pushed her to a corner. Okie dokie! Izumi rushed forward, dodging the mute's balls like a ballerina on the dance floor, and reached him within mere moments and clashed with him as he used his balls to defend himself while dodging backwards, the sorcerer chasing him with unreal grace. Megumi flew ahead powered by his wings and sliced forward. The old man decided to forego all defense and instead just attack, punching the blade head-on. Surprisingly, with a mix of his unnatural muscle and cursed energy reinforcement, the blade didn't cut through his fist and instead just dug in slightly. A smirk came to the fanatic's face, but it was wiped away as Megumi's wing gained a coat of cursed energy that hardened and formed a brilliant edge that dug into his side and the surged with an electric burst, the electric charge slightly paralyzing the cultist and bringing him to his knees. New Shadow Style. Reforged Moon. Megumi had perfected his new ability that he used prior in a more rudimentary form, a derivative of his master's New Shadow Style, Hazy Moon, using the core concept of hardening cursed energy and using it to substitute a blade. And incorporating it with his wings to form two hardened bladed wings that proved to be invaluable in battle. Not allowing his opponent to recover in the slightest, he then pulled back Koge and proceeded to slice the cultist's head off in a single clean swing, blood splattering on himself once again, staining his hair a deep crimson. Turning to his teammates, and got ready to help them, but realized that it wasn't needed as they had already finished their battles shortly after him. Shortly after cornering his opponent, Blizzard had overwhelmed her and disarmed her before spearing her right through with his claw and pulled to the side, nearly ripping her in twain. Izumi jumped and danced around his opponent, covering him head to toe in small gashes and cuts. In a moment of desperation, he had thrown his ball towards the graceful sorcerer, who in a show of skill and dexterity slid underneath it and used his momentum to slice the mute's leg off at the knee, crippling him, and proceeded to jump from his prone state and pierced him through the neck, instantly taking him out. Good, let's not waste time and finish this. Megumi called out to his comrades and jogged towards the heart of the compound where he felt the greatest concentration of cursed energy. They reached a double door that, when opened, revealed the last of cultists. The room resembled a church, but instead of holy imagery, they had hostages tied up with cultists waiting above them ready to kill them at the slightest movement. On the middle end of the hall they saw a man wearing a red priest's attire on a podium who started speaking. Welcome, honored guests, to the birthplace of our monarch's dynasty. If you were planning on interfering, I'm afraid you were too late, for all the preparations are complete. Looking around at the hostages, Megumi had only one thing to say. Shit. The cultists had them cornered, as they all knew that if they tried to attack, the hostages would be slaughtered. Izumi had a grim expression on his face as he recognized the hostages. They were the villagers. It seems that the cultists worked fast and captured dozens of them. Looking closer, you could notice an odd tattoo burned onto their forehead. As if things couldn't get any worse, the head priest pulled out a small wooden box, and from within it he pulled out a small object covered with talismans and seals, an object that immediately became clear and recognizable to both sorcerers as the priest removed the seals. This lunatic,
Is that Sukuna's finger? Megumi cried out in surprise. Izumi was not much better than him as they both had sweat fall down their necks. The cursed energy of the finger already leaking out and permeating through the room, the malevolent energy being unlike anything either sorcerer had felt before. It was pure unadulterated evil as within it lies a fragment of the King of Curse's very soul. So you recognize our monarch's glory? Then rejoice, for today you shall witness his return to this mortal plane. The mad priest said as he fully unsealed the finger, revealing it to the world, the purple waxy mummified finger. Cheer, my children, for today our Lord is reborn. Take the lives of these lambs and offer even yourself to our monarch. Tonight he shall return through my body as a sacrifice for his divine form. May chaos take the world. The cultists heeded their master's words and immediately started the slaughter. Blood flowed through the air as the hostages turned sacrifices and lamb to the slaughter died en masse. Shortly after slaughtering their sacrifices, they proceeded to commit suicide with fanatical smiles. They all died while chanting their mantra. As they all died, the tattoos that were burned onto their faces started to burn once more with a crimson hellish inferno. May chaos take the world. May chaos take the world. May chaos take the world. Stop them. Kill the head priest before he eats the damn finger. Megumi cried out, utterly overwhelmed and afraid of the complete worst-case scenario, the early resurrection of Ryomen Sukuna, in a body that he would have complete and utter control over. He summoned all his Shikigami, consequences, and cursed energy drain be damned. He and Blizzard blurred ahead towards the priest to kill him before he could swallow the finger. But they were half a second too late as the madman swallowed the finger with an insane laugh as they reached him and ran him through twice. Koge went through the madman's right eye and shortly after ripping his brain apart, Blizzard's claw speared through the cultist's abdomen, no doubt rending the cultist's inner organs to shreds. Yet, instead of merely dying, the cursed energy of the now dead priest's body surged and exploded out of his corpse, sending the two flying away. Shit! The cursed energy of the hall started shifting and moving and started to coalesce towards the dead corpse of the head priest. All the negative energy born of the madness, depravity, and suffering within these now cursed halls seeping into the corpse. For a moment nothing else happened, and then the corpse shuddered and shook as if trying and failing to move. And then from the hole within the cultist's abdomen a large misshapen arm emerged and grasped the ground, then another arm emerged. And then a third arm emerged. And within a mere second a large body exploded and flew out of the corpse. It was a large man. He had half crimson hair and half grey hair from the head priest's body. He had malformed tattoos around his hideous body, and 3 deformed arms. His face was a grotesque abomination with 2 halves barely connected to each other with a pair of eyes on each half of his face, counting up to 4. Megumi's combined desperate effort to stop Ryomen Sukuna's awakening had worked, but he hadn't managed to be fully reborn as the vessel was both incompatible and utterly broken, making it an unfit vessel for the King of Curses to inhabit. The destruction of the vessel at such precise timing had allowed the information of the King of Curses' body to be reformed but not of the soul, which caused the malformed abomination to be born. But, with the combined effect of the cursed energy within Sukuna's finger, the suffering and negative energy within the halls of the compound, the sacrifices of the cultists and hostages and the pure belief of said cultists, a special grade land god cursed spirit had been born. Megumi didn't allow himself to stay shocked for long as he ordered all his Shikigami to attack and then turned to Izumi and all but shouted orders at him. Stay back and buff me. If you see an opening, go for it, but stay back and support me above all else. He had then run off, not bothering to listen. He rushed ahead to attack the cursed spirit. Izumi immediately channeled his cursed technique, beginning to dance with unbelievable grace. In the distance, Megumi's body glowed with a faint pink glow as his cursed energy surged, the effect of rhythm enchantment taking place immediately as his cursed energy output increased by 25% and his mind cleared up, all emotions blurring as he sliced ahead with his blade. The special grade spirit turned to him and threw 2 of its arms at him sloppily. From them arcs of sharp cursed energy flew out. A warped, sloppy imitation of the true king's cursed technique that was easily avoided. With his enhanced cursed energy output, he flapped his wings once with great strength, immediately flying above the slashes and continuing his charge. Blizzard, who was already ahead of his master, reached the spirit and started clashing with it. The false king's fingers grew malformed claws that matched Blizzard's own. From the curse's side, Max Elephant fired a tidal wave of water, trying to overwhelm the spirit, but it lifted its third arm and pointed at its assailant and fired a tidal wave of flames of its own. The flames turned the water into vapor as the fire continued towards the elephant and burned it severely. Megumi immediately desummoned the Shikigami to save it from any further damage. Shortly after this, Megumi arrived and sliced towards the false king with Koge, which found its mark digging deep into the curse's hand, but the curse cared not, as it simply grabbed the blade that was hilt deep, not allowing Megumi to get away. It then moved the arm that still held the flames burning within and was about to shove it in Megumi's face, but a tongue came in and grabbed it, pulling the hand away as the flames misfired towards the ceiling, the blast going straight through and into the setting sun sky. In a fit of rage and desperation, Megumi balled his fist and punched towards the curse while its arms were held down. An action that would have otherwise been worthless if fate hadn't been on the raven-haired boy's side. Sparks of black lightning flowed along Megumi's arm as it landed on the false king's abdomen. From it, an explosion of black lightning fired out, making the curse's body bend with the blow and fly away, losing the arm that held on to Koge. Black flash! As the curse flew through a wall, heavily damaged, the ceiling and walls fell apart from the impact as well, revealing the outside world in all its glory. The world from within Megumi's eyes had changed. Things that never made sense to him before had all coalesced together. It was as if he had been reborn anew. Even through the layer of blood that covered his eyes and colored his pupils a deep crimson, the world had never been more vibrant to him. The world, it truly is beautiful, isn't it? The awakened sorcerer looked towards the rising moon and setting sun, representing a cycle of death and rebirth. The curse crawled to its shaking feet and looked towards the boy with a sense of rage and fear. Taking in the view of the false king being brought so low, the sorcerer laughed out, almost sounding insane. Ha ha ha, that's a nice look you got there, curse. I never tried this before, 'cause I didn't think I could pull it off before, but what the hell am I, right? Might as well try, no. He brought his hands up, chuckling like a madman. After all, I can see it all clearly now. The true essence of Jujutsu. He brought his hands together, his fingers intertwined with his thumbs touching together at the top, and chanted with all his heart, as if declaring his victory to the very heavens above. Domain expansion, Chimera Shadow Garden. The abyss that was normally confined within his shadow exploded forwards, the ground beneath them being reformed into his will. The abyss overtook the area around them. It captured every living being around. Then the shadows underneath their feet surged upwards around them and closed around them, forming a barrier around them, blocking out the skies. Izumi fumbled and stopped channeling his cursed technique from shock as he looked around and muttered, "You serious? A domain expansion, at our age?" The curse was overwhelmed and was looking around in complete disbelief, unable to comprehend what was happening around itself. Ha ha! It's malformed, unstable, and barely held together, but it worked. Megumi cried out, his arms spread as he laughed like a madman. He then brought his hands down and looked down at them before commenting, "Looks like it's barely incomplete too. It doesn't have a sure hit effect." Looking back up at the curse, he cemented his will with a demented grin, "But it'll do for a fraudulent curse like yourself." Even though it couldn't fully comprehend the sorcerer's words, the curse could understand that it had been insulted and rushed ahead like a mad dog, abandoning all sense of false royalty. "Who do you think you're rushing at, you filthy mutt? Step back." He waved a hand at the oncoming curse, and as if from thin air, a tsunami of rabbits appeared from the void and flooded towards the curse, sending it flying away. Let's get creative, shall we?" Megumi said while standing still as the abyss around him moved and shifted to cover him, then shrinked into nothing, making him disappear from sight. When the curse stopped itself, it looked around madly, trying to find its opponent, only to not be able to find any and start to throw out flames and slicing arcs of cursed energy wildly around as if trying to break its prison, but it was all in vain as a voice sounded out from behind it. "Behind you, dumbass." A frosty greatsword pierced through the curse, its icy power biting deep into its body as Megumi leveraged his body and used cursed energy reinforcement to send it flying into the air. Multiple gammas appear from the abyss and throw out their tongues, grappling the curse and holding on to all of its limbs, keeping it suspended in the air as an easy target as it struggles in vain to free itself. Heh, like shooting fish in a barrel. Megumi raised his hands up and channeled one of his many abilities. Incarnation, Max Elephant. Instead of growing any elephantine features, a hole appeared in each of his palms as from within them torrents of water sprouted out and slammed into each other. He then slammed his hands together forcefully, the water from his palms converging and compressing. Time to rip off both Choso and Sukuna at the same time. Megumi had a devious grin on his face as he called out the name of his stolen technique. Convergence. Piercing Aqua. A thin stream of compressed water fired out from Megumi's hands cut the curse's right leg off before flowing around wildly and cutting some of the tongues of the gammas and setting the curse free onto the ground. Ops. Well, I see why Choso never really killed anyone with this thing. As strong and useful as it is, aiming with it is a pain in the ass. Megumi rubbed his neck with slight embarrassment, though his grin hadn't left his face. Oh well, time to finish you off, her. Megumi looked upon the broken curse with a slight sense of pity before turning around and walking off. Behind him the abyss shifted as two great serpents formed and started devouring the broken curse alive, the domain fading away shortly after. Oh hey Izumi, nice to see you were safe. Well done on the mission. If you ever feel like it, hit me up. I'd love to team up again, that or if you want to move up to bigger places in the world than the backwater villages in the mountains. Megumi said as his Shikigami were unsummoned one after the other. Yeah, I'm good and I'll keep it in mind. You okay? You look half dead, Izumi said with a blush, utterly shocked but flattered at his compliment. HM? Oh yeah, never better. I did run out of cursed energy though. And I am about to pass out. Catch me please. Megumi was cut off by him doing exactly what he said he would. Thankfully Izumi caught him in time and took him back to Akari so they could regroup and leave as the mission was done on their part. A day later, when Megumi woke up again, he found himself in a soft bed with a heavy smell of anesthetic. Groggily pulling himself up, he rubbed his eyes to be able to see clearly. Where the hell am I? I got the curse right. You finally woke up, huh? Turning around, he saw Shoko sitting at her desk to his right smoking a cigarette reading off a clipboard. You're in my infirmary at Tokyo Jujutsu Tech. You also got the curse. Congrats on your domain and exorcising a special grade cursed spirit, by the way. She put down the clipboard and looked at him with a proud smile. Oh, so that was real. Cool, Megumi said, looking at his hands in surprise. Shoko got up from her desk and walked to him, before announcing, they're talking about making you officially a grade 1 sorcerer too. The Zenin clan's pushing for special grade, but that's probably not gonna happen. HM, neat, Megumi said, taking it all in. It is neat, but I think this calls for a celebration, no? Here. She offered him a cigarette from her pocket. Aren't you a doctor? Well, you're not wrong though. Megumi questioned but didn't refuse as he just grabbed it and touched it with his finger, a spark of electricity flying off it and lighting up the cigarette automatically. Oh. Didn't know I could do that. Cool. Must have been the black flash, Megumi concluded before taking a drag out of the cancer stick as he sat up straight, not bothering to question it. Probably, Shoko just said, not surprised in the slightest. And so they had a comfortable silence as he relaxed from the mission and its aftermath. Half an hour after the team left the village, a lone woman walked through the broken husk of the village. She reached the main compound and marveled at the dead corpses around. She didn't seem affected by the monuments to madness and misery surrounding her. Within moments she arrived at the main hall and witnessed the piles of dead villagers sacrificed in the name of a false god and walked past them, shortly reaching the defiled body of the head priest and smiling at the sight. Looks like you weren't the one after all, Mendez.
Can't say I'm all that surprised, but you did waste one of his fingers and now Jujutsu headquarters probably has it. She looked at him in disdain before walking off towards the broken wall. She reached a crater which a fight must have taken place prior to her arrival according to the residual cursed energy marks left around. She sighed and pushed her black hair back, revealing a scar going along her forehead as if it had been stitched a long time ago but scarred over with time. Ah well, it seems that trying to incarnate Sukuna through sacrifices and belief doesn't work. I suppose Yuji will have to do for now. She looked around for a while and then started walking away with a smirk. It has been a rather interesting experiment though, and I did find out more about an interesting piece, Megumi Fushiguro. How intriguing. The days and weeks went by fast as soon enough. 3 years had passed. October 22nd, 2017. Outside an abandoned high school in the suburbs of Okinawa, a black limousine screeches to a halt nearby. The windows were blacked out, blocking the view of whatever was inside them. After a few seconds of silence, the left back door of the limousine opened up. A white feminine hand grasped the top of the car door and pulled up with little effort. From the car rose a youthful woman with long silver hair that covered most of her face, revealing only her mouth. She looked into the car with a sultry smile. "Shall we, Megumi-kun Tilda?" The woman's enchanting voice seemed almost teasing in nature, yet it hid a sense of respect and intrigue. The limousine's right back door opened as from within, a black-haired young man arose. He was tall with well-built muscles. His body was turned away from the woman as he soon turned back to her with a smile of his own, revealing his piercing green eyes. Megumi Fushiguro had grown tremendously over the past 2 years, going from 5 feet 5 inches to 6 feet 4 inches tall in a growth spurt that deeply puzzled his sister. His face had lost most of its baby fat and revealed a sharp jawline. Pretty sure my merging with Megumi's original soul had caused him to inherit some of my original features, cause I look different from the OG, not that it's a bad thing. He looked downwards at his sorcerer suit's inner clothing. It hugged his body tight and showed his chiseled muscles that were no doubt earned over years of hard work. Over his black Jujutsu tech-inspired uniform, he had on a white hakama that covered his entire body. "You shouldn't be teasing me so much, Mai. People might start thinking about some unpleasant things." The young man teased right back. "Also, aren't I the stronger one here? Maybe I should start calling you Mai-chan." The woman's smile deepened into a smirk as she moved her long braided hair out of her face, revealing her entrancing hazel brown eyes. Mai is a mature woman with thin eyebrows, sharp hazel brown eyes, and pale peach complexion. Her long, silver hair with a hint of blue is typically pulled back into 2 braids, one of which conceals her face and the other falling over her shoulders. She is dressed in an all-dark bodysuit with pants that conceal her legs and tuck into matching colored boots. She placed a hand on her hip and the other behind her head as she held a pose that showed off her enchanting figure. Her sorcerer suit hugged her body tightly as it all but revealed her curvy body that was sure to entrance anyone. "Now who's gonna start the rumors, Tilda? Either way, as fun as this is, we have work to do and money to gain, Tilda." She walked to the trunk of the limousine and pulled out a comically large suitcase. When she opened it, it revealed a large 2-handed axe with a dark body and brilliant silver edge with a sorcery mark in the middle of its blade. Its handle was a deep brown with a bandaged grip for enhanced handling during combat. Megumi walked towards the high school building and examined it, taking in its dilapidated state and humming in thought. Mai joined him at his side with her cursed axe at the ready on her shoulder as she scanned the building as well. "See anything interesting?" she inquired, receiving a nod in response. "Focus on that part of the building. You can see a higher concentration of cursed energy in that area. If I'm not wrong, there might be a few grade 1 curses there. There are also a few more clumps around the building leading up to that. They should be 2nd grade curses," Megumi said as he pointed forwards towards the middle of the main building. The older sorcerer hummed as she focused where he did and found the same thing. "Good work, Megumi Tilda. Shall we begin?" She gripped her cursed tool and read it herself. "MHM, let's."
The raven-haired young man brought a hand up as he chanted to bring down a curtain. Emerge from the darkness, blacker than darkness. Purify that which is impure. They marched together into the building as the curtain fell around them, reaching into the building within a few moments. As soon as they entered the building, they found a few low-level curses ranging from grade 4 to 3 moving about. They reacted with a mixture of fear and hunger as they saw the sorcerers. A pair of 3rd-grade curses were the bravest among them as they threw their bodies at what they perceived as prey. Confident little worms, aren't you? Blizzard. Megumi drawled out, with his hand still at his side. His shadows exploded outwards as from within them, Blizzard jumped out. Immediately blurring towards the oblong curse, his powerful jaws clamping around the curse's neck, and as he dragged it to the floor with a loud smash. The wolf then threw the curse towards his master, who reached his hands into his large sleeve and withdrew his katana koge that now had a pure black blade and handle with shadows flowing from it, and sliced forward. The now fully realized blade instantly sparking with electricity as it cut the curse in twain in a shower of sparks. Drops of blood that stuck to the blade turned into smoke as the obsidian katana held sparks of electricity. Gojo's plan paid off well. Over the years of using it, Koge has become an actual cursed tool. It can now channel the powers of my Shikigami without me needing to use incarnation to draw the powers out, as well as... He stabbed his blade into a nearby shadow and watched as the blade disappeared, its other end appearing right beside another 3rd-grade curse that hesitated to move towards them from the shadow of a locker and stabbing it right through the neck. Megumi moved his arm down in a cutting motion as the blade on the other side moved as well in response and slashing off the curse's head. He withdrew his blade and watched on in satisfaction as the curse turned to dust before his eyes. Looking to the side to check on his partner, he saw her pulling her axe back and cutting through the curse that ran to her with unnerving ease. She then all but disappeared from her place and appeared next to another 3rd-grade curse and merely punched it. In response, the curse exploded from the force of her punch and turned to dust. Mai then readied herself as she leaned back ready to jump ahead and rip the curses before her to shreds before she turned to Megumi and sang out, "You better not fall behind, Megumi tilde." Who's falling behind? The young man grinned as his cursed energy fluctuated. His shadows exploded into an abyss as from within it multiple Gammas and Max Elephant were revealed, immediately charging forwards. Took a while, but over the last 2 years I mastered how to summon my tamed Shikigami without the need for hand signs or the chant. I can't have my opponents know which one I'm summoning and be able to plan ahead for it. Although I could use them to potentially enhance the strength of the Shikigami by making the chants and signs into rituals instead of necessary steps to the summoning, something to consider for later, I suppose. The toads spread out like a plague, their long tongues ensnaring curses and bringing them towards their executioners. Blizzard was ripping and tearing through the curses like an apex predator on a hunt, his white coat being stained a deep crimson red. Max Elephant was a huge dominating force on the battlefield, his massive stature forcing everything on the battlefield to move lest they be trampled upon by his might and floods of water. Megumi and Mai worked together like a well-oiled machine, their combined efforts tearing through the hordes of curses with relative ease. Each movement was precise and meaningful. Their attacks were focused not only on shredding their foes but to also cover the others' backs. Their experience fighting alongside one another was deeply evident. Eventually they came to a stop as they had ran into a trio of grade 1 curses, the combined enemy force making them stop to consider and plan ahead. It seems these curses really are smarter than the rest, huh? Well, no matter, I'll take care of the one on the right. You take the one on the left and we can corner the last one together. Mai said as she pulled back and brought a hand up aiming towards her chosen target. Black Bird Manipulation Lapse. Bird Strike. Bird Strike is a black bird manipulation extension lapse technique used by Mai. In order to erase the limits of her typically weak crows, Mai can force her crows to commit suicide in return. By hurling a crow imbued with cursed energy beyond its normal limits, the user can unleash a devastating attack that is normally a one-hit finisher. In short, in exchange for the death of the crow, she squeezes out an attack so powerful it could cause lasting damage even to the likes of Satoru Gojo.
Truly, it is a cruel yet effective use of her technique that not many other than Mai herself would have considered. The mark of a true Grade 1 Jujutsu sorcerer. However, Megumi was not one to be outdone in battle, as over the past year worth of missions that he had gone on with Mai. He had also considered the use of such an ability and had devised a way to extract as much power from it as possible. Combine Rabbit Escape with New, visualize the merger between them. Create not what was but what shall be, guided only by the grace of my shadows. Megumi brought his hands together and twisted as if forming a ball. Beneath him his shadows morphed and folded over themselves to his whim. And then never forms before seen were brought to life. Merged Beast, Kamikaze Skvada. The newly formed beasts were hybrids. The Shikigami possessed the head, body and legs of a hare and the feathered torso and wings of a wood owl. Along their body flowed arcs of powerful, unstable lightning that gave the dim surroundings a yellow hue and filled the air with the scent of ozone. Skvadas, go and show them what you're capable of. Megumi ordered as Mai watched from the side with an intrigued look on her face. And go they did. All three of them charged forwards with reckless abandon, their bodies lighting up like bonfires of cursed energy. The curse that they were headed towards didn't seem to care for them and assumed them to be weak because of their stature and didn't bother to dodge or try to block. As the first Skvada reached its target, it slammed into the curse with all of its might. The arcs of lightning along its body firing off in a dangerous flare as when it impacted the curse, the merged beast exploded into a violent aurora of sparks. The undefended curse's body all but imploded on itself. Its right side of the body had completely been eviscerated by the initial impact. Then came the lightning. The arcs flowed along the curse's body, its violent energy rending its remaining flesh to dust within milliseconds of the impact. The third curse saw its compatriots' demise and shivered in fear. Its 5 unnervingly long limbs gripped the ground with a false tension as the ground beneath it shook and burst upwards in an attempt to protect itself. When the second Skvada reached the improvised barrier, it didn't even slow down for more than a moment as the barrier was torn to shreds before it hit the curse with a weakened attack. Thanks to the slowed impact and preparation, the curse only lost its left side of its body. However, that was not enough to stop the third one as it hit the curse in the middle of its body. The curse bent and folded before bursting open into a shower of purple blood and ash. After a few moments to think and relax, the older woman spoke up first. So you went and copied my bird strike with your technique, Tilda? Not bad, though I wonder if I could sue for copyright infringement or ask for royalties, Tilda. Mai said in a joking manner, though a part of Megumi told him that she meant it to an extent. Before Megumi could answer back with a snark, both sorcerers froze and turned to a corridor, where they took in a sight that shook them to their cores. It was a tidal wave, not of liquid but of curses. Dozens, maybe even hundreds of curses, all trampling over each other in their mad sprint to devour the sorcerers. Within the curse avalanche there were 4th grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, semi-grade ones and a 1st grade curse, with the latter seeming to be in the lead as if they were the cause of all the curses banding together. Looks like our showing off and slaughter of their brethren en masse has spurred the rest of them to charge at us to take us out by overwhelming us with pure numbers. Mai declared with a sense of urgency before looking towards her partner. Unless you have another trick up your sleeve that's strong enough to handle this, let's retreat and call for backup. This isn't worth risking injury or equipment for. Megumi grimaced slightly before steeling himself and nodding. I have a few more things up my sleeve that could take care of this. I could use a domain expansion here, but I'd rather not expose it. As much as I trust Mai, I do not trust her not to spill the beans about my domain to the Zenin clan if they were to actually give their all to spy on me. So I suppose this would be a better alternative. Good thing I subjugated this one a few months ago. The raven-haired man took a deep breath before he brought his hands up once again, crossing them together and twisting his fingers. He then started chanting. This one's still a work in progress and it's not that refined yet, so I can't summon it normally, but this'll have to do. Umbra. Reforge. Amalgam. Phoenix Heart. Maximum Technique, Merged Beast, Eloxa. His shadows grew and exploded outwards even further than ever before, their size reaching over 5 meters tall before shedding away and revealing a monstrous hybrid.
It was an elephant all right, but it was ginormous, towering over everything in the hallway and barely fitting into the area. Instead of grey skin, it had armor covering its entire body with spikes spotted around. It had an extra pair of horns by the sides of its head, and finally, if one looked closer they would spot holes along the beast's body that oozed a yellowish liquid. This wasn't merely the merger of 2 Shikigami, but 3. Using Max Elephant as the base and host for a strong base foundation, adding in the thick defenses and paralytic poison from the great serpent Orokai, as he came to call him, as well as a brand new Shikigami, the newest to his collection. Piercing Ox was the newest addition. From it he had imbued stronger charging strength, added horns, and most importantly, the ability of the Shikigami, which was gaining more strength and cursed energy output the longer it charged in a single direction. Aside from a domain expansion, his maximum technique was Megumi's current strongest asset, although it was imperfect as he requires a full chant and hand signs as well as a huge amount of his cursed energy to summon. Even then, he currently can't hold the merger for more than 30 minutes. But the effect was worth the trouble, as it would forcefully merge any Shikigami he wanted with maximum compatibility. It also boosted the overall power of each ability mixed inside the merger manifold. Megumi took in deep breaths to regain his poise before steadying himself and granting the merged beast a single order. Charge! The lumbering beast lurched forward and sprinted towards the coming horde with supernatural speed. Along the way the pores around his body secreted its poison, which then flowed around it in a helix, this being thanks to its merged abilities that grants it telepathic control over the paralytic poison. As it reached ever closer to the avalanche of curses, a mark shone brighter and brighter still atop the beast's head as Piercing Ox's ability grew in strength, turning the lumbering beast into a bulldozer that not even the likes of Satoru Gojo or Ryomen Sukuna would dare take head-on without preparations. When the clash came, it sounded out with a thundering crash that sent shockwaves throughout the building, shattering windows. The avalanche of curses could not dream to match the charge, as they all were crushed hopelessly by Ixola's charge. Whether it be by the slicing helix of paralytic poison or crushed by the force of nature that is the merged beast, none survived the lumbering disaster.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.